OTB AM with Gillette Labs. Get the ultimate shave or your money back. Neon Night Edition available now.
Very good morning to you. Welcome along to Tuesday morning's OTB AM with myself, Shane. We've got Colin Boothby. Good morning, Colin.
Hello, Shane.
Good morning, Adrian Barry. Good morning, Adrian.
Shane, Colin, good morning to you.
So good, I said it twice.
Yeah.
How are things, lads?
Good.
Keeping well?
Yeah, all good.
Good. Come here to me. I'll tell you this. I was playing my first six-a-side last night in weeks. My big comeback.
Six-a-side?
Yeah. Could not wait.
You and me both, Shane.
Could not wait.
Couldn't, of course, be five-a-side or seven-a-side.
Well, I don't organise. Could not wait, right? On my way to the match was started at 8.
Yeah.
As you know, if you were in Dublin last night, I don't know what it was like around the country.
Oh,
the
yeah.
heavens opened and then some.
They did.
Match was called off because the Astro was flooded.
No way.
That's how bad the rain was. The Astro was. We got there at 5 to 8, and the announcement was you can't play. Astro's flooded.
It happened
Could
pretty
not
quickly,
believe
didn't it?
Went on Instagram, was cheered up a little by seeing Shane Hannon's incredible picture.
Oh, yeah.
Of the lightning bolt.
Really?
By the Guinness
The
store.
Guinness factory, yeah.
Right.
Guinness store. So I was waiting in my room. I was like, this is too good. I love an old weather phenomena.
Give us a look there. Are we any?
Don't know if we have a photo.
It's on your Insta feed, is it?
It's certainly on the Instagram feed. It was.
It's remarkable. Sure, look, they all follow Shane Hannon out there. Don't worry, everyone will see it.
It's on the Twitter as well. If you
On
want to check the
Twitter,
Twitter, perfectly timed.
Shane Hannon
Oh, the
01.
Twitter's a better one, yeah.
It's incredible. It's like a fake picture. Like it looks
is.
so good.
Yeah.
It's fake.
I've got a confession to make.
It's not yours.
It is my photograph, but
It's not from that one.
no, and it was yesterday while the thunderstorm was going on. But everyone was like to me, Shane, how did you get that photograph? You're an unbelievable photographer, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, well, it's actually very easy. And I do this often when there's a thunderstorm.
Videoed it.
You take the video,
Yeah.
and then
You take a screen grab of it.
you pause the video, you go along to the screen grab, you screenshot it, you make it look good, and that's it.
Sorry, it's real.
Oh, it's real though.
It's just a video.
Yeah. It's just, but it doesn't take much talent.
The taxi driver this morning couldn't get over how you managed to capture it.
See, now I've opened the kimono, as they say.
As Ger says.
Ger would say.
There's nobody else saying it. There isn't anybody
Yeah,
else.
I'm
that
spending
says
too much
that.
time with Ger.
Who were these people that said to you it was an amazing photograph? You should like get into photography full
I had a
time?
few people that
Really?
said that's going to be in the
And
papers.
these
and I was like,
people are very close to you, obviously.
David, you're an amazing singer-songwriter.
That's right. People stop me in the street and they say,
yeah. It was
Shane,
no,
you're
like,
great.
it was just because it was hitting the Guinness storehouse, and I thought, oh, this is
it
magic.
actually wasn't hitting the storehouse, though, was it?
No, it was obviously
probably
further
somewhere
beyond.
yeah.
But like, I mean, visuals.
Sorry,
Adrian,
I mean, I didn't get much sleep last night, but I've already sounded like a
Yeah, I
curmudgeon
didn't
here.
either.
So.
I didn't either. But can you credit that? Astro game called off, pitch flooded.
Yeah, well, it fairly teamed down for about 20 minutes.
I felt very sorry for the 7 to 8 crowd playing. They were like drowned rats coming off.
Yeah.
It came down big time over a short period of time. That's what you get. And also when the ground was wet, the ground was really dry after a really warm day, it just sits on top, and that's what you get.
Shifty
Great,
lads.
great thunder and lightning last night.
It was fantastic.
Great thunder. and
There's the
lightning.
photograph.
There's the photo. Look at it there.
For
now.
anyone who
wow.
Sideways as well. You could have straightened it up. Shane.
I was panicking. Do you know, I was like, this is going to miss my chance here.
Panicking.
You need to get out
Other
before the
time
crowd.
constraints.
I don't know how long the thunder and lightning was going to be there, but it certainly grounded itself.
It
a few
was
places.
very impressive.
Yeah.
You can never. Sometimes you can't tell if someone's bringing in the bins or if it's thunder. But
True.
last night it was.
Or a heavy truck going past.
Absolutely. Imagine in the olden times when there was none of these things and thunder happened. You think the world is about to end.
You would
You know.
nearly name a god after a thunder or
Stop.
something.
Now, as Shifty lads already point out in the comments, there should be games every Monday afternoon.
Ah,
That was such a feel-good vibe. Now, the weather was nice yesterday afternoon before the thunderstorm, but then you read at 3 o'clock, Fulham Leicester wasn't on TV.
yeah, it's true.
Diego had it.
Diego had it. Yeah.
What a game!
€12.
5-3.
Crazy.
5-3.
What lads? What games?
Yeah.
3 games, 21 goals.
Have a coronation every weekend.
100%. I think the record was 16 goals for a Premier League game week that had 3 matches. So like, they absolutely demolished that.
6, 7, and 8 goals scored between the 3 games.
Ridiculous.
Yeah.
And also like that they weren't sort of dead rubbers that everybody was kind of just
There was
patting
something
along.
for
Like
everyone.
there was something for everybody, and you know, and then each one of them would win. Like Everton would win, and they must have been thinking, "Oh, we've got a march and everything. Oh, this is great." And then the other teams around them would win. But a good couple of days for themselves in West Ham.
Jesus, yeah. If Everton stay up now, they're going to look back at that performance, not just the result, but the performance.
I think they're going to stay up. I think that will be the game that they look back on being that was the start of their survival.
It's hard to see. What points do you think is going to? What's the?
They have. I think their last 2 games are fine. They way Manchester City at home next. So okay, don't expect anything
Gone.
from that.
Yeah.
Wolves away. Wolves on the proverbial beach.
Yeah.
And Bournemouth at home also joining Wolves on the beach.
Yeah,
For a great day out. That would be.
Yeah, Bobby Dwyer pointing out it was up there with the Stevens Day 1963 results that they
remember him
watched the day wheel out every now and again.
And Evan Ferguson back in the bench. He got 45 minutes for Brighton last night. That was I don't know if you're probably the same, but every Brighton game, I'm looking at live score. What's the story? Is he? Yeah, excellent.
Undav, their third choice striker, started. Ferguson came on, and it probably does. Yeah, probably gets lost in the whole thing that he nearly scored. Beautiful
couple
move.
of them.
Dropped the shoulder just at the edge of the box. The one where his left foot at the edge of the box, and Jordan Pickford tipped it onto the crossbar. Yeah, that was a 3-0 down. And then McAllister hit the bar as well before Everton scored their fourth goal. Dwight McNeil. He's always had this in him, hasn't he? He just has no confidence. But those 2 goals, the way he took them, rounding the keeper Astro style, and then the last goal of the game, his second, Ryan Giggs against Arsenal-esque.
Yeah.
Absolutely smashed into the roof net. Something beautiful too when it's lashing rain and the nets are soaking, and he hit the ball so hard that the water splashed off the net.
That sort of thing.
And also, to be very niche about it, the way that Harvey Barnes' first goal against Fulham went in, hits the crossbar, hits the line, goes up to the roof, and that comes back out. That sound,
it's enjoyable.
That
crack.
Yeah. I love that.
Like the thunder. Love a bit of noise.
Great sounds this morning.
Yeah, it was good. So Fulham 3-0 up at half time, and you're thinking, right, this is game over. But Leicester showed a bit of fight to come back into it, but it was never really
kind of not.
Yeah,
bit like the Southampton game last night, that they could have gone. Was it 5-2 up? They could have gone at one point, and then the goal got disallowed, and suddenly it nearly ended up in a draw at the end. The goalkeeper comes up, and it's, but I think in reality it was
not
the
as
right
tight as they
outcome.
looked.
I was looking at it, and you're thinking, obviously you're looking at the goals that are going in. Great decision to drop Gavin Bazunu here, and I just thought, I wonder, look, I don't know, would he have got to some of those?
We'd like to think he
might have. Certainly over the first couple of them I was thinking maybe he might have done. I just never know. Some of them are so close in as well when the shots come in that it really are in the lap of the gods to try and get the paw to it. He does have a bit of history in saving penalties against superstars.
True.
But I thought, well, look, my opinion doesn't really sort of matter overly, as you'd say, Colin, in the grand scheme of things. Let me take to the internet and find out what people are saying about him. So I did a bit of
about everything.
Quick Twitter search just to see what was going on, and I just came across, because I wanted to get a sense, was this the right thing to drop him or not? So Southampton page was saying, I'm glad we've dropped Bazunu, in a sarcastic way. We've just conceded even more. And then I scrolled on. We had Joe the American. Come on, Alex, my keeper, so Alex McCarthy got in his place. Closely followed up by Bazunu would have saved that, you clown. There was an awful lot of personal abuse of McCarthy here, so I deliberately sort of steered clear of that. Le Sacre Roma. Basically, I did a Google Translate on this, and that also translates to McCarthy, you clown.
I was going to read it in French, so I didn't bother for you.
Then we was in praise of Bazunu. Ben James Carragher was digging Bazunu out a little too. I actually thought that he was a solid young keeper. Obviously going to concede with Southampton. Not a great defence. Giving up 20 shots a game is what's happening there. Sam says, still can't believe that Sellers has dropped Bazunu, and we've actually leaked more goals for those who wanted Macca back. Hate to say I told you so. So I couldn't really get a proper sense from all of those. Like, I know a lot of them are sort of saying bring Bazunu back in, was it the right thing? But I couldn't fully still make up my mind, so I did what you of course do to try and
any good investigative journalist.
Exactly. I went to ChatGPT, which gave me the lowdown. So I just basically asked it, was it the right thing that Gavin Bazunu has been dropped here, and should they get him back into the mixer?
Right.
And ChatGPT, should he leave Southampton this summer, was actually the question.
That was the question
that I actually in fact asked, and now that I read it in front of me here. So AI obviously sort of dissociated itself slightly from the question, and then said, however, there are several factors that Bazunu and his representatives may want to consider when making such a decision, including his playing time, his potential for growth and development, and the level of competition that he will face at Southampton. If Bazunu is not getting regular playing time at Southampton, he may want to consider a move to another club where he would have more opportunities to showcase his talents and further his career. On the other hand, if he's valued by the Southampton coaching staff, and who knows who the hell they're going to be, that he'll be seen as an important part of the team's future, and he may choose to stay and continue working with the club.
Right.
Which I thought was pretty conclusive.
Conclusive, yeah. ChatGPT turns out has good brain for football, maybe.
So
they've danced around the answer.
I'm still sort of none the wiser. Would he be better off in the Championship next season and rebuilding his confidence over the course of a career? He's literally taken an absolute hammering over the last season in every regard, and it's a bit of a thankless task. So I don't know, would he be better off in the Championship?
Yeah, it's a good question. I envision him playing there next season.
Championship?
I think so. He's so young, lads. And, even younger for a goalkeeper, because they traditionally play longer than outfielders.
Yeah.
So he has such a long way to go. My worry about him is if Southampton don't get promoted next season, and he plays, and say they finish mid-table or lower half of the table, doesn't have a particularly good season, then a Premier League club might not want him as much anymore, and then suddenly he's a recognised championship player rather than a promising Premier League goalkeeper.
See, it's like I'd love Caoimhín Kelleher to be playing in the Championship next season, because it means he's left Liverpool, he's getting regular game time, etc, etc.
Why doesn't he play in the Championship? Caoimhín Kelleher.
Well, there's chat about him going to Brentford.
Could he not have a Premier League goal?
Brentford would be a great move. I think with Bazunu, you want to be a brave club in the Premier League now
to take him on.
He's just even the optics of it. Like
he had a lot of good games initially for Southampton. That's why Alex McCarthy remained on the bench for most of the season. Like, he was good for a while.
He's a very good goalkeeper. It's that will come back. It's just, I mean, when you're taking that kind of a hammering from a defensive point of view, there are shambles looking at them last night.
Oh yeah,
defensively, absolute joke.
They are, but in fairness, 3 of the 4 goals, I mean, the one was a penalty, and the other 3 from open play were brilliant. Like, they were exceptionally good team moves by Forrest, great finishes as well. Oh my God, Morgan Gibbs White's assist. The subtle flick touch for Danilo to finish, who's really come into form at a crucial stage. He'll be one of their cult heroes, like Carlos Tevez, West Ham style. If Forest stay up, Danilo's scoring loads lately. But Gibbs White as well, like, they invested huge amounts of money in Gibbs White from Wolves last summer. He was a late signing, and he didn't start the best. I remember they were at home to Tottenham, and he was kind of marked out of the game and a bit peripheral. And I remember when he burst through the scene at Wolves, I was thinking, geez, this guy is seriously good. And he went a bit quiet for a few years. I think he had a loan spell. It was at Sheffield United, certainly in the Championship.
Yeah.
But Forest really hedged their bets on him, and it's paying off, because now he's becoming increasingly influential. I hope Forest stay up. I really enjoy Nottingham Forest. Yeah, I love the City ground. As I said, I love their jersey, love their crest.
Nostalgia reasons you want them to stay up, is it?
Yeah, I just like saying Nottingham Forest.
You just like saying Nottingham Forest?
As much as I dislike saying Sheffield United, because you have to say their full name.
Well,
do you know what I mean?
I see you.
Yeah.
True, yeah. You can't see United.
They're up now, so there's nothing we can do about it.
It's true. We should say after that first match, Fulham 5, Leicester 3, there was a post-match interview with the always honest James Maddison. We were not hungry enough to want to win the game. Now, he did clarify what he meant, or rather how it was perceived thereafter on Twitter. So I think we might have the screenshots from the tweets that he put up.
We don't, but I have
them there. But we have them there. So what is wrong with social media? Say one thing in an interview straight after a game and it gets taken away out of context. When I say not hungry enough, I mean aggressive and on the front foot in duels, not us wanting to win or realising the importance. I followed that up. We were not good enough today, and we've only got ourselves to blame, and apologise for that. But as someone who sees the work we are doing every single day to try and put this right, it's not down to attitude or application. We will keep going until the very end. So James Maddison and the Leicester players keen to point out that they are trying their very utmost to stay up. Will that be enough? I don't really know, but certainly the choice of words, the lack of hunger was one that...
Yeah, you look at the table this morning, so Southampton are goners really. 24 points, so they're 6 points off 19th, let alone safety, which they are 8 points off. Then you have Leeds and Leicester 19th and 18th respectively, both on 30 points. Leeds have a far inferior goal difference, and then Everton are lingering outside the relegation zone on 32 points. So what a win yesterday, 5-1 away to Brighton. That's only their second away win all season, Everton.
Crazy.
Their last one was in October.
So
first win in 8 altogether.
After that first match, so 4 teams sat within a point of each other by 5 o'clock, and then you've got the Brighton Everton game kicking off, and you're thinking, so we were talking yesterday, we were like, we were going to book an Everton guest for the show today, because we're like, they're going to be gone. Brighton are going to beat them, and it's going to be essentially Everton in serious doo-doo, like. And the performance last night was just ridiculous.
Well, even if you look at the fixtures to come, so there's 4 teams. Basically, West Ham are safe, and there's 4 teams there that are in the mix to join Southampton in relegation. That's what we're talking about. And I don't fancy Nottingham Forest fixtures.
No.
Chelsea, Arsenal.
A resurgence in Chelsea.
I'm not saying they could be gone.
3 points against Chelsea.
The win yesterday means that they will be in the mix come the final day, no matter what happens, when they have Crystal Palace, you would think, which may not be the case for a Leicester, for example, who have Liverpool and Newcastle upcoming. They could be gone by the time they play West Ham. So, like, Everton have City, so that's, like a game gone, and then Wolves and Bournemouth, and Southampton are gone. There's no need to even discuss them. Forest having Chelsea and Arsenal in their next 2 games.
Yeah. Interesting.
Tricky.
Is Everton Man City
probably?
Is there any point talking about it? I always feel like Deitch now is the man to open this title race wide open, because Everton need the points.
I remember they had a massive win against Man City years ago under Ronald Koeman at Goodison, and I always go back to that game thinking, City struggle at Everton, but they actually don't.
Is that Goodison, that game?
Yeah.
Well, that could be interesting.
They're not great.
The City game.
Yeah.
I mean,
they've not been great at home, Everton.
It's true.
They seem to enjoy the release valve of playing away. The pressure in Goodison is phenomenal, like among the fans, and they get real angry quickly when it goes wrong. Like I watched the Newcastle game recently when Newcastle obliterated them. And Everton fans, they either turn or leave in their droves. You don't want to be a struggling player playing
Speak with their feet.
I enjoyed Martin O'Neill on Monday Night Football last night.
Yeah,
good insight.
He's very different. Like I felt sort of about the Graham Souness departure that there's room for a Souness, a Keane, and Martin O'Neill is sort of in the same territory. You know, you leave the deep analysis stuff to. He was on with Carragher last night. You can leave all the minutiae of the breaking the thing down to him. But he was good. Yeah, like there was the in-game stuff was so, and he will talk a little bit. He'll obviously talk about the stuff that it would be in his strengths, you know, which wouldn't be that level of breakdown. You know, certainly wasn't offering it last night, but always value. And like, you know, I just felt there was even that maybe they did 15 minutes at the end about his, you know, the typical Monday night chat. But it was only about 15 minutes last night, which definitely that could have been. I was firstly surprised that it hadn't happened before now. But they obviously got into the Brian Clough stuff given the night that was in it, talked about him, he said, you know, Dave Jones was offering to him that Brian Clough was a great sort of man manager, a brilliant technician, a tactician is what Martin O'Neill said. In some ways I felt as if he was also answering the question about himself. Real similarities there.
Irish Sam Allardyce.
He says he got a bad rep, didn't turn up at training at all, but was a genius coach in game.
This Clough?
Yeah, Clough. That's what Martin O'Neill said about Clough. And he said he himself was inspired by Peter Taylor, not Clough, to become a manager. That he met him in a shop. O'Neill was running around the shop trying to avoid him. This was after he had they had parted. They were no longer working together.
Yeah,
trying to avoid him because they never really get on that well. Taylor spots him, shouts at him, calls him over, and says, "Oh, you! I always thought you'd make a great manager. Why are you not in management?" And that was it. He thought, "Oh,
Jesus,
wow.
What a nice little meeting."
And then there was a lovely thing right at the end of it where Jamie Carragher says he's clearly building up to pay Martin O'Neill a compliment and says, "You were /are a great manager," and a smile creeps across O'Neill's face. And it was a lovely little moment.
I almost feel like there's a knowledge, and this was kind of brought up in the roadshow, our own roadshow last week. There's a knowledge on Sky that they're saying something that's going to be clipped. I almost feel like they have their answers, especially Jamie Carragher and Gary Neville. They know how short to keep their answers for social media. It's like it's almost like they say something, and they like look at the camera and like, there you go.
Take that one.
Clip that quick.
Yeah.
Throw it up. Tag me.
It was good. He said he misses the game desperately, says at the end, and quite clearly wants back in.
You could call it a hashtag come and get me play, maybe.
Yeah, I think most of those Monday Night Footballs can be, but
I thought he'd walk off into the sunset. Yeah, I suppose he feels like he's unfinished business because since the Aston Villa job, it hasn't really been great for him. Like he great spells at Ireland. He also looks very well for his age, doesn't he?
Yeah, very well. Yeah.
I was interested. I thought the Brian Clough stuff was most interesting. Obviously, we were talking pre-show, like, God, did they get into the Ireland stuff at all? But of course, there'd be no interest in Sky from that point of view. But you kind of want that little bit because you feel that away from the Irish media, he'd probably open up a bit more. He was always very defensive with us.
He is.
But I think him talking about Clough is the most interesting element, and him calling Clough by far the most charismatic manager he's ever seen in British football.
I always enjoy him on ITV during the World Cup.
I think he's a good pundit.
Yeah,
there's always room for that.
Yeah, bit of crack out of him.
Yeah. It's not the, like, you know, and the other thing that you sort of forget about is that he's obviously still loves football probably the same way as ourselves, and that he's watching a lot of games.
Yeah.
Like when I'm at home, I don't have the sort of touchscreen out and analysing every little detail, whereas Carragher and Neville are doing that day in, day out, every single day of the week.
Yeah.
So it's difficult to get up to that level.
Yeah. Muller Boy here is an Everton fan, and he's predicting a 2-2 draw at Goodison next time against Man City. Equally could be 22-2. And as our own Kathleen has said to us here, that I forgot about this, Everton drew 1-1 with Man City at the Etihad earlier on this season. Kathleen's dad is an Everton fan. Reminder of it last night.
It feels like one of those games that Everton could get something out of, based on the performance last night.
I just can't see it. I just can't see it. It's just because City have the title to go for, so they're highly motivated.
Yeah.
And also they are the sort of team that, like, even though they've just been squeaked past Leeds the other day, like, City are the type of team that feel even if they're beating a team 2-1 or 1-0, that they'll just beat you by what they need to beat you by.
They've got the Real Madrid games either side of that Everton game.
This is you giving more hope to Everton fans?
Yeah, they've got to concentrate in the Champions League as well. I know they want to win the treble, of course.
City can also afford to switch in and out 4 or 5 players and still win comfortably. I don't like. I've been tempted to be fooled by the 2-1 let's see what happens against Everton. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
2-1 such a predicted scoreline, isn't it? If it's an upset.
Oh,
I'll
yeah.
go for 2-1 upset.
Or
Well, a
1-0.
2-1 defeat for Leeds was an upset to me.
Really? Oh, yeah. Well, it was a 2-1 hammering.
Oh, yeah.
Like seconds earlier, they had a penalty which Haaland donated to Ilkay Gundogan to score his first ever
Silly,
senior
silly,
hat-trick.
silly.
And Guardiola castigated him.
There's no room
afterwards.
for sentiment in professional sport. No room for sentiment.
Bury them.
If Haaland wasn't so selfless,
Take it, Haaland.
if he wasn't so selfless, he'd break the all-time scoring record for a given season.
Probably still do that.
Great fella.
We've got a couple of. There's a theme in the comments as well. Jim Sullivan says, "Will United take a punt on Bazunu? Cheap option, perhaps." Brian says Bazunu is miles off United level right now. I don't know about that. Shifty lad agreeing with the original comment. Kelleher from Man United. I don't know.
Well, Bazunu could certainly play ball from the back, the way that David De Gea can't. But De Gea's a better goalkeeper than Bazunu at the moment.
Yeah, for sure.
Definitely, all round.
And he's still only 32 De Gea as well, so he's not exactly beyond it just
Now,
yet.
if United signed Bazunu this summer, delighted.
Oh,
He doesn't have to start straight away. He could play a few games here and there, play a few domestic cup games. He's so young, lads, remember. So if he's playing enough, plays about 10 to 15 games next season, and then the following season De Gea moves out a bit, then maybe we'll chance him.
Well, the word is Jack Butland is going to leave United this summer as the number 2. So there could be room there for a younger number 2 to come in, get your year or
Maybe,
two under
yeah.
De Gea, and then maybe
He needs
work
somewhere
your way.
off Broadway, Bazunu, I think,
Yeah.
to rebuild his confidence a little bit. Like that'll have been a tough season for him.
Totally, but like he's so young, he's such a long career ahead. He's going to have spells where he's not confident, where he's not playing well. So I hope there's no panic around him and he's discarded.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
You know, that's what I hope. Or more to the point, I hope clubs don't discard him.
I think he'll be looked after, won't he?
There was some chat
never
in my little research last night, let's call it, where there was somebody saying, you know, where will these suite of players who were involved in some of the teams that are towards the bottom end of the Premier League, if they get relegated, where would some of these players go? And he happened to be one of them that was mentioned.
Right.
And there was some people responding saying that he should go to Chelsea.
Bazunu.
Yeah. So, I mean, I wouldn't say he may not be discarded, but
Yeah, Kepa and Mendy aren't.
I wouldn't want him walking into that
convincing.
dressing
I think
room.
Mendy's a fine goalkeeper, though. Just again, like Bazunu, out of form.
That's a mess of a club at the minute as well.
Championship final day yesterday was some crack. Millwall 3-1 up.
Blew it. Yeah.
Our own Rory Darmer's Blackburn just missed out in the
I was
playoffs.
thinking of him when I saw the final table. I was like,
Yeah.
that must be disappointing to finish 7th in the championship.
But Jonathan Wilson, a semi-regular on the show, is a huge Sunderland fan, and he said, "What are we doing in the playoffs? We're not ready. We're only little boys. We're going to get destroyed in the Premier League."
So it's 3rd against 6th, isn't it? And 4th
right,
against
yeah,
5th.
yeah,
So we'll have in the playoffs. So Burnley and Sheffield United, of course, automatically promoted to the Premier League. Luton Town in 3rd will play Sunderland over 2 legs in the playoff semi-finals, and Middlesbrough will play Coventry. It's a real old school kind of feel to the playoffs, especially.
Ravanelli.
Ravanelli, sure.
I would love Coventry to come up. Now that crest brings me back to the 90s and Premier League stickers.
Yeah.
Remember a shiny? Remember if you got a shiny in a pack?
Oh, it
You
was.
do you know what I mean by this?
I do, yeah. The shiny cards.
Chinese
yeah,
are 10 a penny now.
Oh, shinies were huge. And the Coventry crest in the shiny. If anyone has the Coventry crest in the shiny, can you send a picture in to us?
Kev Caban,
I
of
would
course,
display that happily.
finished his career at Coventry, Kev. And he played for Sunderland.
Forget about that, yeah.
He's got a couple of.
Every
bits
game
of
is a
interest.
Kevin Kilban derby, is what you're saying.
Essentially.
I would also like to see Luton up. They seem to regularly make the playoffs.
Well,
recently.
Kenilworth Road just looks
massively overachieving. And Rory makes the point to Roy Darma here in the comments. Luton, nice and handy name. Easy to say.
Yeah, you don't have to say Luton Town.
Palmalol.
You ever flown into Luton?
No, but I know people who have.
Luton, I'll tell you, is one of those.
Jesus Christ. Luton is an easy name to say. This is what was just happening in the studio here.
Yeah.
And then I know people who've flown into Luton.
So, that was to be fair, Luton. My point was Luton is one of the bleakest places I've been to in quite some time.
You're always having a go at places in England.
Wolverhampton was the last one. Apologies to anyone from Wolverhampton. I think it was just the place I stayed. You know, sometimes you stay in a bleak little.
Did you fly in wintertime like?
No, it was actually a couple of months ago. I suppose that was winter time.
I think, what is there some way when we're
What time is it?
this last couple of minutes has not been
7:54.
our highest
Not our
point.
finest. Put
No.
it in for the Emeralds.
Here's a stat that shocked me.
Right, go on.
Glenn Whelan has 91 caps for the Republic of Ireland.
But I
also shot that he was still playing ball.
That's a stat though that I feel like everyone knows.
Oh, I would have heard it.
Gotcha.
I would have heard it, but it's just it's shocking to me that he played that many games. But then I look back and Sir Giovanni Trapattoni loved him. He played every game of Euro 2012. He played 2 of the first 3 games of Euro 2016. Central to a lot of Ireland's great moments, actually.
He's highly thought of by teammates.
I think he was much maligned unfairly by Irish fans. He was often the scapegoat for the lack of creativity, but he was always steady out, and actually steady is almost a bit of an insult as well, that word. Like, he's a good player, like he was good, I think I put him in the category of good.
Good player, solid player.
I put him above solid.
He's a 91 capped international.
Well, you're never going to say he was a great player. So let's just accept that.
But you could say he was a great servant to Ireland.
Brilliant. 91 caps. I wasn't so surprised.
That's like a little. You're a great servant. You're not a great player. You're a great servant.
No better cause to serve your country. I imagine.
That's true.
Yeah,
that's true.
Now you might not be patriotic, but if you are, that could be one.
I tell you who's patriotic is Declan Rice, because someone's commented into the comments. Brian says Everton need to play the national anthem before the game again Sunday. Give Dyche superpower. There's a patriotic.
You'd be up for that, Jen?
Well, absolutely. If whatever floats Everton's boat, whatever floats Dyche's boat, Declan Rice was absolutely blaring out "God Save the King" before the West Ham United game.
Why wouldn't he?
Fair play to him. And tell you what, he was man of the match as well. So it obviously instilled something in him. This idea of a monarchy just got into his bloodstream. So fair play to him.
Why wouldn't he?
Yeah, sure, let him at it. I know the Liverpool. We haven't really spoken about that. The reaction to "God Save the King" in Anfield at the weekend was awkward.
It was predictable,
but awkward.
Yeah. Good point here as well by Shane in the comments that Whelan should have got a testimonial for Ireland. His rocket against Buffon at Croke Park. And Mike probably sums him up, but he's a great professional.
Did he ever really officially retire from Ireland though?
I don't think so. I think he always
can't really be given
when he was with Hearts. I remember
he was the same as Paul McShane. He said, "I'm never gonna."
But I didn't read it. I forgot that he was at Bristol Rovers for so long. 39 years old to finish up. He's going to be a coach.
If you had said
as well,
he was 42, 43, I would have said
I
believed you. Fair enough.
He's going to be a first team coach there.
Somebody says here, Michael, he was a great professional. I think that definitely is
an insult.
Did you just say that? Sorry, I thought I'd pushed over that. No, not an insult at all. I think that basically sums him up. I think that's it. I think there's no sideswiping that at all. I think that
applied himself well,
incredible, and like you said about obviously teammates and stuff like that. It's not an insult to say that he made the most out of everything he had. People sometimes tend to read an awful lot into that, but I think that
squeezed it all out.
Yeah, 91 caps.
Fair play to him. Congrats to Glenn Whelan on an extraordinary career. I would call it, certainly from an international perspective. 91 caps is quite an achievement, and certainly some good memories in an Irish jersey there. Alex Ferguson.
Yeah, 10 years ago this week he announced he's retiring from football.
This surprises me the most because I can't believe it's 10 years, although the other part of me is like, well, actually it does feel like 10 years.
BBC Sport did a very good piece yesterday, the behind the scenes leading up to his announcement, and how a few people knew because they had to know. So he decided in December 2012 he was stepping away. So in the October his wife's sister passed away, and he took that as a sign, okay, need to spend more time with Cathy, and he had to let the club know by March that he wasn't renewing his contract or wasn't staying beyond that season. That was an existing deal. So they met David Gill, but little did he know that David Gill was about to tell him, "Oh, I'm leaving." So they were surprising each other, and trying to keep it under wraps was the big thing. And actually the news broke 24 hours earlier than he wanted, so he was livid at that. The word got out. The players kind of were laughing and joking with him, but the staff were taking it very seriously because they were so unsure of their futures. But what really resonates in the piece is just how much of a mess it was almost from day one when Fergie left, because there was the handover is exactly it. So he thought he was leaving the club in great shape, but they had no planning meeting that summer about what to do next. And they didn't appoint David Moyes officially until the 1st of July, so they didn't buy him out of his Everton contract. So by the time he started, he was well behind.
So your job now is to get behind your new manager. Was that not known that it was Moyes at that time?
Oh yeah, it was all revealed then. So that game, that was the last home game against Swansea, but the announcement came before that. Yeah, so it was leading up. So the game, the announcement was the Wednesday.
So they could have been planning
and the
away
match was that weekend. Yeah, and they had an emergency. Sorry, they convened after the last game, the 5-5 draw away to West Brom, but they never had a meeting after that again. So they were behind. But it just goes to it was just the start of a decade of madness at the club.
Isn't there a website that does here's what happened on this day in sport?
Oh yes,
it's like the
Colin Boohig website.
Basically, this is Colin every day of the week. Here's something else that happened
7 years ago. Today. No, it's a good one though.
7 years ago today.
I was I was in Old Trafford for Ferguson's 25th anniversary game against Sunderland. 1-0 win for United. Wes Brown scored an own goal for Sunderland, and that was the day that the Sir Alex Ferguson stand, as I call it, was named for him, and he was completely surprised, and literally was brought onto the pitch, I think, by David Gill, and turned around there, and they'd obviously kept this secret from him, and it was a nice little revelation for Alex Ferguson. But yeah, it seems, wasn't there a David Moyes interview done recently where he was like, I was just called and told,
it was he did the Diary of the CEO.
Yeah,
Wasn't
That was
one?
it. That was the one. Yeah.
Very good. And he said he was out shopping with his wife in Manchester maybe or somewhere.
Yeah.
And he gets a call. Where are you? I'm out shopping. Right, come round to my house. I'll be ready. Come round in an hour. And then he's like, he's sort of saying to the wife, "Oh, I'm after getting called around to Alex Ferguson's house.
You can't say no.
I don't know. I don't know what. I don't know what he wants. Like,
Yeah.
so you'd actually no idea what the hell he was going out there for. Certainly did not expect clearly that he was going to be coronated.
Here's the keys to Old Trafford.
Coronated.
Well, it's topical anyway.
That's what I mean.
Yeah.
If we don't
Let's
know
go with
now,
it.
we'll never know.
Yeah, Wilmslow in Cheshire. That's where Alex Ferguson lives. I'm reliably informed. Any other messages coming in? Yeah, the Orbis Football Collection, best club sticker album of all time. When we talk sticker albums, I have one, I think, somewhere in the studio, but used to collect it. You know, the keep swap, you'd be on the school.
Oh yeah,
school run.
Bob Dwyer, you get 3 normals for a shiny.
3 normals for a shiny.
Yeah.
See, I'd say from a parent's perspective, it's an expensive hobby.
Oh yeah, it was. Yeah.
Well, it's a good carrot to get stuff done.
Oh yeah.
Get
Clean
your
your room
packet of
there, and
Magic
here's
X
2
if there's
packets.
stuff done. Exactly. Yeah. They come in a box now, but they're you know the way they were simple. You said there was a shiny, there was normal ones, and that was sort of it. Now there's like hat-trick heroes, man
3D
and match.
ones.
There's like
Ones that speak to you, probably.
upcoming. There's like all these 100 club.
The world's moving too fast for us, lads.
Yeah.
I'll tell you. 8:01 AM. Will we tell everyone what's coming up in the show? The rest of the show? We might as well. Between now and 10 o'clock with myself and Adrian. Tommy Walsh is standing by. Very shortly, we're going to chat GAA. We're also going to chat the weekend's Hurling Cork tip. Of course, a cracking game for those who got to see it. 8:20, we'll be joined by the Sligo senior football manager, Tony McEntee, off the back of the disappointment in the Connacht final of the weekend against Galway. But of course, they have the All-Ireland Round Robin series coming up, so we'll chat to Tony shortly. 8:45 AM, we'll chat to Cameron Hill, who was at the AIL club final at the weekend as well. Jasmine Baba will be talking Jude Bellingham with us from 8:50 or so, and Tom English will join us at 9:10 to reflect on Celtic winning the Scottish Premiership title of the weekend with their 2-0 win over Hearts. And then we'll have highlights of Malachy Clerkin's chat with Joe on last night's show from 9:30. That was also on GA Go. Colm, thanks a million.
Thanks for having me.
Popping in as per usual. You are the producer, so you don't have to come too far, to be fair.
I'm looking forward to hearing this guy's thoughts on GA Go.
Yeah.
Here we go.
We'll save it for Tommy now in a
Yeah,
second.
yeah.
Ready to go. I should mention at 8:02 AM on OTB AM, Braeburn Coffee is the official coffee partner of OTB. Braeburn Coffee is coming to an Applegreen near you. New Braeburn locations are popping up every month, so visit applegreenstores.com/Braeburn to find your nearest Braeburn Coffee experience. After the ads, we'll have, as I said, Tommy Walsh. First, a clip from Monday Night Rugby last night with Fiona Hayes and Jerry Thornley.
John Dobson of the Stormers summed it up when he said of Connacht and the game on Saturday in Cape Town, they've got dog in them. They've won 7 in a row. There's something there that's worrying, the way they fight. Their attack shape's really good. Connacht have a great story from a windy greyhound track in the far west with the smallest budget in Ireland. They don't go away. They'll be tougher than we think.
The smallest budget. Their budget is reckoned to be around about the 5 million mark, which will be down with the Dragons and Zebra until next season, when the Welsh come down to that level as well, due to the salary cuts over there. But that would be half Ulster or Munster, I'd say, and less than half of Leinster's. And here they are in the top 7. And of course, by Leinster beating the Sharks, it completed a good weekend for Connacht, because it means they've qualified automatically for next season's Champions Cup, which they deserve.
Yeah.
And in Andy Friend's 5 seasons, which by the way is 2 seasons longer than he stayed anywhere else, which just shows you kind of buy-in you get out west. Like Finlay Beelam's married an Irish girl, Nia Loken's married an Irish girl. They're all going to stay there for the rest of their days.
They get into you deep, don't
Yeah,
they?
they do. And I can understand why you might want to live in Galway in the west of Ireland. It's just a great city, great town. And Friend the other thing about Friend, in his 5 years, he's never had a losing record. He's always broke 50-50 or had a winning record.
OTB AM.
The Sports Breakfast Show from Off the Ball. The Coigig Pod on Off the Ball.
I don't like it. I want to be up there in Group A. I don't care who we get. We should be up there competing against them. But, as you said, we're going to win that group and then get promoted, hopefully.
Subscribe to the feed in the OTB Sports app now. OTB AM with Gillette Labs. Get the ultimate shave or your money back. Neon Night Edition available now.
Alright, approaching 8:05 on this Tuesday morning's OTB AM with myself and Adrian. Time to turn our attention to matters hurling, and delighted to say the Kilkenny legend Tommy Walsh joins us on the show this morning. Morning Tommy, how are things?
Yeah, good morning, Shane. Good morning, Adrian.
Hi, Tommy.
Are you keeping plenty to get stuck into, Tommy, as it turns out, for those who saw the action of the weekend? Some cracking games and plenty more to look forward to. There's only one game of note, of course, in the senior championship to look forward to this weekend. But I guess the story, Tommy, that's dominating the back pages in the last couple of days is the GAA go. We have the back page of Irish Daily Mail. GAA go say no. So Noel Quinn, the chief of GAA go, defending the service after the strong comments, I guess you'd say, from Donald Cusack on the Sunday game of the weekend. He accused RTE and the GAA of exploiting hurling, saying the game needs oxygen. What do you make of this whole issue, Tommy? I guess it's all about visibility of the sport.
Yeah, Shane, I think it's a very sensitive conversation, very sensitive issue. Why? Because, you have the elderly involved, people that probably, were involved in the GAA since they're 9-10 years of age. Now they're 70 years of age, 80 years of age, 90 years of age, gave their life to their probably clubs, some of them to their county board, some to their counties, their provinces. And, their children are just probably upset and angry that they haven't easy access to the game I suppose they love, and possibly many of them retired at this stage, and it's the one thing they probably look forward to most weeks is the hurling game or the GAA game at the weekend. On the other side, like if they look at the GAA side of things, they have to try and keep everybody happy, Shane. Like I would imagine the top brass in the GAA, they got to where they got to from working hard in their clubs, from working hard probably in their county boards or their various jobs. They didn't just get there willy-nilly. They had to work hard with probably a huge passion for the game to get to where they get to. But they have to keep everybody happy. I remember in the Kilkenny, a great, I suppose, committee member of Kilkenny County Board years ago. I remember my father was talking to him about fixtures and giving out about fixtures, probably Tullaroan fixtures probably at the time. And he was just saying to him, he said, listen, fixtures are grand and they're easy to do until you're the one making them. Then you're clashing with communions, you're clashing with confirmations, weddings, minor matches, under 21 matches. So like all these things are probably, it's when you get to the decision maker, then the challenges, I'd say, are enormous. And like you would have to say, like I was listening to a lot of the commentary over the last weekend and over the last few days, they all make sense. Like Don Logan, Jackie on Sunday night in the Sunday game, like, Don Logan, we all know Don Logan, he's not afraid to say what's on his mind, but it comes from a good place. Like he's hugely passionate about the game, he's hugely passionate about growing the game, he's hugely passionate about Klein and all things Cork and all things GAA. He was one of the main drivers of GPA back through the year. So when he says something, he works hard at it and he means it. Jackie was there with him as well. We heard John Milan speaking, Tom Dempsey, Eddie Brennan. We heard a few lads last night speaking. So, like, all these things are coming from a good place. So, I think it's all about not winning the war here, not the battle. So, we could all probably argue different sides of it. It's probably how do we achieve it together, what we want to do, which is promoting the game. And, like Shane, like, you go back to 10 years ago, is it 5 years ago before the round robin? So there was probably 2 before the COVID, so probably back to around 2016. In Munster, there was only 3, say before the provincials, because I presume all the provincials will be on free to air. So before the provincials, there was only 3 games in Munster. There was a Munster 2 Munster semi-finals and a quarter-final. In Leinster, you only had 2 quarter-finals, because I think 2 teams at the time would have got byes. I think it was 2 quarter-finals, 2 or 3 we'll say, and 2 semi-finals. So like that's 3 games plus 4 games. That's 7 games. And I was looking at it the other day, like I think there's 18 games now in the earlier provincials. So there's an increase of, 16 or 17 games. Like it's unbelievably increasing games. So the challenge is, how do you get them all on free to air? Like, and as you know, and probably the country knows, like I worked for GAA Go there for the first couple of games. Good people, like really passionate about doing a good job, really passionate about the GAA. The analysts were good. The lads behind the scenes, the cameramen, the producers, Grania, like all really trying to work hard to promote the game, and work hard at the jobs they were given. And like the big probably criticism is that the main games, we're going to GA Go, the main Munster games, which is the Limerick and Clare game. But listening then to last night, it was originally supposed to be on RT free to air only for the Great Limerick run. But there was other games on G, and say the other one was the one the weekend, the Cork and Tipperary game. But like GA Go did have other good games on, which was the Kilkenny Antrim last Sunday, Wexford and Galway, Dublin and Wexford. So they weren't just cherry picking, the big games. So I just see it from probably every side because I'm hugely involved myself with the club, and I would always have been slow to criticise the committee members for the one reason is I see firsthand that say our own board in Oklahoma, which would be a small really set up as compared to the bigger county board regouts or the GA itself, and the enormous work they do. You'd only see after you finish playing what they do, like organising games and pitches and so on and so forth. So I think that the challenge is like, say if there was no GA Go, Shane. So if we cut out the GA Go for is it possible to put all these extra games on on the free to air, or like how do you pick, like how do you know beforehand that the Cork Tipperary game and the Limerick and Clare, well the Limerick Clare was supposed to be on the free to air, it's just that because of Great Limerick run, but say if you were to try and solve it for next year, like how do you pick what games do you think? Like I would have thought there's a few, like the Limerick and Waterford game that was on RT, like the first game, like you would imagine that was set up all week. Everyone was wondering about Davies' tactics, and Limerick were the All-Ireland champions. Watford were in the All-Ireland semi-final, in the All-Ireland final. They had a bad year last year. They were league champions, but then they had a bad cup 2 or 3 weeks, really. They didn't have a bad year. Probably a bad 2 weeks, maybe. And so everyone was intrigued about that game. So, yeah, it's a sensitive case. I really think it's a sensitive case. And, it's a case everyone's nearly right, like, but
I know, and it's one of those things that there's so many strands to it, and I think something that shouldn't get lost in it as well is that nobody is criticising the GA Go platform, like the work that yourself and the other pundits are doing and what Grania is doing. It's a brilliant service. The issue, I guess, for a lot of people is the choice of games. You look at the 2 provincial football finals the weekend; they were poor as in one-sided. Now you could argue that if Sligo or Clare had caused an upset, then it would rationalise those games being shown on regular TV. I have made no secret of the fact that I think that 4 hours given to the coronation of the King in Britain by our state broadcaster was a ridiculous decision. So there's a number of reasons why this story has probably gained so much traction over the recent days. Like Dunlogue's point, Tommy, on this being given over, the year being given over to rugby country, like that was another thing. What do you make of that idea that we're I guess pitting sports against each other with comments like that, but also you can see where Dunlogue's coming from in that he wants hurling to get the oxygen, as he said, to breathe.
Yeah, well, I think in the same conversation he also said that he has huge respect for the rugby guys and hopes to win the World Cup and hopes to do really well, and said it so you have all the GA games on, suddenly you have the rugby contingent, then why are the GA getting so many games? And I think it's just a huge challenge, the sheer number of games that's now, especially in the GA. Like we're gone from a knockout championship many moons ago to backdoor, now to these round robin games. Like leave it alone, what's going to happen in a couple of weeks when the Sam Maguire round robin games kick off. Like I'd say this conversation will go up tenfold because listening to the commentary, there's going to be most of the big hurling games coming to the end of probably the Munster and Leinster round robin stage. The kind of knockout games nearly at that stage there will be are going to be shown as opposed to the football games in the Sam Maguire. So I just think there's huge challenges. We've only the 2 channels, RT1, RT2, then you have TG Car, Virgin Media. So I don't know what way the broadcasting rights or that work and spreading them out over the 4. But yeah, listen, there's huge challenges, but you can understand in the rugby, like it's a World Cup with a team that people are hoping, that maybe can get past that quarter-final stage, maybe win a World Cup, like they've done so well in the Six Nations and that, like, so, do we need a sports channel altogether, So then you're probably definitely paying for like, like you take Sky Sports over in the UK, like I know that's reaching a worldwide viewership, like, but they have 401, 402 up to about 412 or 13, and they've nearly a different sport on every channel, and even at that, they probably don't get to show all the games. So it's impossible, really. And Shane, the other argument is the split season, like, it's too condensed. But like, you go back to a few years ago when I was finishing up and kind of playing with the club, finished up county and playing with the club. So that time we had a match maybe in April, and maybe possibly 2 matches. But then it depended on how Kilkenny fared out in their own inter-county championship when you played next. Like, is there any sense of that? I don't think so. Like, it's grand. Yeah, you see the games on television, but if you're a club player, which, do they say it's 97 or 98% of the GA population or the hurling population is playing club, and so they have to train like demons in January and February and March for a game in April, because it's a championship game, maybe 2 games, and then you're told, listen, lads, you might be playing May, you might be playing June, you might be playing July. So, like, the GA acted that time. I know COVID helped, and like the split season, depending on who you're talking to, I suppose, but I would imagine anyone that's involved in the clubs thoroughly enjoyed last year anyway. Not sure how it's going to go this year, but definitely last year. Like, I know Kilkenny finished up with a club campaign that was incredible. Like, we had the county lads back for weeks upon weeks together as a group, as opposed to just coming back for the match. So, like, I go back to my point about the challenges. It's when you go to make the decisions, then you see all the obstacles that are in your way. But I don't know, could you have a sports channel altogether?
That's you're talking sense in my language, anyway, Tommy. I would be up for that. I think like, there's so much in what we're discussing even here this morning, right? And like, even the point about that GA goal we're making yesterday at the Limerick Clare game wouldn't have been shown on TV regardless. Like, there's an awful lot that tends to get rolled in then to the one conversation. The one thing that I have a bit of an issue with, and Micheál Martin was talking about it yesterday as well, saying that the whole thing needs to be reviewed. Personally, he doesn't like it. This idea of politicians talking about, it's like, personally, your opinion is the thing that drives policy, and like, so it's actually very important, as it turns out. But we've tended to talk about this as, the big games getting, put behind a paywall, let's say, or whatever the case might be, Tipperary, Cork. So are we saying it's okay for the lesser games to be behind a paywall? So are we saying that, it's not okay for people from older people, let's say, because it's been couched that way, and I don't know if I necessarily agree with that either, but older people from those 2 counties should just, we'll make it free for you, but if you're an older person from Laois or Antrim, when they're playing at the Hurling Championship, well, you just have to suck it up. That bit, I have a bugbear about elitism in GAA, Tommy, and I think that notion, either we agree that this service can exist and the games that are behind it regardless of who's playing, or we just do away with it entirely. I don't agree with this thing about the bigger games. Yeah, well, sure, you're never going to please everybody, Adrian, so like, if you try and please everyone, probably nothing will happen. So you probably have to go with something and just go with it. But like, I still go back to the point where showing the bigger games, like you don't really know what the bigger game is until after it's over. Like, if you went back to, I didn't look at it before coming on air, but from just memory, the Tipperary Cork game last year, was that not a disaster of a game? So, like, if they had to show on that last year, nobody'd be griping about it.
Like, it's only after a game is played that everyone knows how it's such an incredible game it was. But, like, like, free on the free tier, the Kilkenny Galway game was in Nolan Park. Henry Shefflin coming back to his home county management after all the media attention I got last year. Galway and Kilkenny both All-Ireland, say, semi-finalists, or Kilkenny got to the All-Ireland final, but ran Limerick close. You would have expected that to be an incredible game, but it wasn't. So how do you predict which games? The only way of probably putting all the good games on free to air is playing them all, really. But say the Kilkenny Antrim game Sunday wouldn't have been, that wouldn't have been a big game or probably huge viewerships, but it was available and it was nice. I wasn't at it because we had a communion the day before, but it was nice to watch it. It was really good, that we could see it, didn't just miss out on it. And like, if you go back to the club games during COVID, I'm not sure who the service providers were at the time, but I think you paid a €5 or that for a game, or €7. And it was a great service for people that couldn't go to the games. But like, so if we look at the challenge that comes next would be, so if we start playing the bigger games, right, the conversation that will come then is what you just said. Why is, maybe the Joe McDonough for games, why are they not all on if we're trying to promote the game? So the challenge is just, where do you fit them in? And you have to remember, Adrian, as well, like, there was games played at lunchtime last year. Was it the quarterfinals were playing at lunchtime last year on a Saturday? The GA people and the hurling big, we don't want that either. So really, the window is probably from a Saturday evening or Sunday from probably 2:00 till 4:30. So you don't even have 7 days like you would have in other sports. Like, so the window is so small. But like, you take it was kind of hurling only for the last while, really. You imagine the challenge is going to come when the Sam Maguire kicks off. And
when
the argument of provincials like last Sunday, I know there were poor games, but is there a duty on, do the GA feel there's a duty that provincials have to be on telly? Like, that's the other challenge. Like, say if it had to be in Roscommon and Sligo in the Connacht final, it probably would have been a huge occasion, because you'd have two teams that would have been just, would have been probably their All-Ireland. I know they might want to win the Sam Maguire as well, but probably Connacht would be huge for their supporters. Like, and I'd say that the Ulster football final, I'd say, will be incredible. That's, I think, Derry and Armagh, so like, do you kind of, or is it possible to wait until see who's in these matches before picking what goes on tellies? Like, I'm not sure what way the Premier League goes. You might be more clued into it than I would be, but like, don't know if I presume was talking from listening. He's all about promoting the game, which is showing the best games and to promote the game. Now, he's up for the smaller counties too, but if you want to promote the game, you're showing the best players. Like in the Premier League, do they show the Liverpool's, Man City's, Arsenal, Manchester United? Are they showing far more than the, say, I don't know, the Aston Villa?
They are, and they're shown in the better slots, but they also at the same time have a commitment to show every club a certain amount of times. That's why you'll end up with some of the less desirable games in some of the key slots at certain times of the year. So there is like, I nearly described it as a sort of a half public service remit somewhere in there.
Yeah, and like, they have a good few days to play around with too, like a Monday night, a Tuesday night, a Sunday morning, a Sunday evening,
Monday afternoon, if anything is to go by. Yesterday, the football, the GA, the Gaelic football people will suck it up, Tommy. Though they won't be ones to make a fuss about it. Like, come here, let me ask you one here about Limerick before we wrap up. Just obviously, Sean Finn been ruled out. I think probably since we had you on before, and it's a monster blow for them. Really, haven't convinced against Waterford. Clearly, obviously losing out to Clare. Is there a blueprint from what you've seen against playing against this Limerick team? Because like, the narrative seems to have shifted on so much over the last couple of weeks from a team that nobody can see a chink in the armour, and suddenly we're saying this thing is open. Is it open?
Yeah, it absolutely is. It has shown the last couple of weeks that it's definitely the gap has been shortened, and Sean Finn is a huge one. That's a game changer for me, because like, no matter how good Mike Casey or Richie English coming in would be, Sean Finn has been just incredible for the last was 3 or 4 All-Stars in a row, and he was unlucky to get one last only for Mikey Phelan did such great man marking jobs on various players, but his standard, Sean Finn's standard, was still 9 out of 10 standard. So a huge blow. Second time to do the cruise shit. Jay feels so sorry for him, because he was heading for, a status. Well, he still has an unbelievable status, but he was heading for legendary status as number 2, and he will hopefully come back and be that man. But he is a glue back there. He's kind of the lad that man marks the main player. Like Barry Nash is given more of a free role. He goes up and down the field. Towards Sean Finn is more stay around the house and mind it. And I think he's going to be a huge loss, and definitely the blueprint then regards, I felt Watford, the way they challenged them, they kind of pushed up on them. So if you let the Sean Finns and Barry Nashes and these guys play around with the ball back to back, they're like forwards, and they're able to bring the ball up the whole way and score. And Clare and Watford, I thought, went up and made it 50-50. Every breaking ball was a 50-50 battle, as opposed to leaving Hannon or someone, Diarmaid Burns, free to spray around the ball. And I felt in the first 2 games anyway, that was. Now, Joe Canning, in fairness, in the Sunday game for a while, was saying it the whole time. Why in the league are people not trying new things? Push up on them, because everyone else was going back the other way, trying to mind the space. So them 2 teams have done it and have had huge success. And you only have to go back to the last play, the sideline cut for Limerick. I was down at it in the Gaelic rounds. There was 65 yards of space, and there was only 4 players in it. 2 Galan and Flanagan, and their 2 Clare opposing defenders. There was no sweeper going back. The last play of the game was such high risk strategy. But if you think back, if they had to went back, it would have left the Limerick lad free, and he probably would have played around the ball up to Hegarty and over the bar. So, listen, I think the first 2 games definitely pushing up on their backs, which is incredible, really. Like, usually it's the other way around. You want an extra lad the other way. But push up on their back seems to be a starting point anyway.
Yeah, fascinating couple of weeks ahead in the hurling championship, especially down in Munster. Tommy, great stuff as always. Thanks a million this morning.
Thanks, lads. Good luck. Bye-bye.
Brilliant stuff. 8:25 on this Tuesday morning's OTB AM with Gillette Labs. Get the ultimate shave or your money back. Neon Night Edition available now. Keep your comments coming in on the YouTube or Facebook or Twitter or wherever it is you're commenting. Sean is an outstanding player, as good a cornerback as I ever seen. Wouldn't cry at Limerick not winning, but feel sorry for individuals getting injured. I think that's the crux of it all, really, especially this time of year. To see any player getting injured is not good. The GA Go conversation, Adrian, is just... as Tommy said, it's a complicated one, it's a nuanced one, and I know Age Action Ireland were coming out yesterday, as well as the Taoiseach, talking about the lack of access maybe for elderly people. I know people have been given out about the service itself. Sometimes the stream itself doesn't work, other days it does. So there's a lot of issues there. I suppose if people are paying the £12, you want it to be working for starters.
Yeah.
But for elderly people, it's just one of those things that it complicates things for them. Yeah,
the age thing is certainly an interesting one, and it's certainly relevant. Like, there's a price point as well, obviously, that is like, can affect younger people, can affect all sorts across society. So it's a tricky one. I do feel strongly about that thing that's been couched to say,
that's fair.
It'd be grand if it's Antrim Laois, but you can't be putting these big games on there. It's just not right. Like, it's naked elitism.
Yeah, 100%. Because you can understand why the big games are going behind the paywall, because from GA Go's perspective,
that's of course, and like, I'm not saying that blindly. I accept that obviously those bigger games will attract a bigger neutral floating audience. Of course they will. Goes without saying, but like, I just think that we can't. If we, that's my point. We either accept that it is there as a service, and so we have to roll with that, and we can't gripe about the bigger games being on there. That's ultimately what I'm saying. Yeah, you can't gripe about them. But if we agree that it should exist as a service, and I know that there are plenty out there who feel that it shouldn't. Micheál Martin was out yesterday saying that. Feels it shouldn't. But if we agree that it should exist as a service, and that there's a major case for it, it's shown games that haven't been shown elsewhere, and you can be critical of RTE obviously and all of that, but if we agree it exists as a service, you have to accept that bigger games are going to be on it, because the alternative is elitism. Yeah, no, it's definitely a word that can be fairly used, I think, in terms of this whole thing. Keep your comments, by the way, coming in on the GA Go stuff, because it's clearly something that's got people talking in the back pages. We'll speak to that as well this morning at 28 minutes past 8 on this Tuesday morning's OTBAM. We're going to continue with GA, and delighted to say that the Sligo senior football manager Tony McEntee joins myself and Adrian on the line this morning. Morning, Tony. How are things?
Morning, Shane. How are you?
All good. Thanks a million for joining us. I know it's been a couple of days since the action in Castlebar. Have you had time to decompress, to reflect on it, I guess relax and unwind after the Connacht final?
Okay, I have, very much so. Yeah, we've it was a 5-hour journey home, Shane, on Sunday evening with traffic, and then a stopover with the kids, the family and kids with me. So by the time I got home, I had plenty of time to think about it.
That'll bring you back down to earth, having the kids in the car and the 5-hour journey.
Yeah, well, to be fair, then I got home just in time for the Sunday game, actually. So I was only in the door and the Sunday game started. So I'm not sure if that was positive or negative for me, to be honest with you.
Did you turn it on?
I did turn it on, yeah. And the Sligo game was first up, actually. So it was good timing. Yeah, it was good timing.
Does it give you? Do you watch punditry now with a level of scepticism? Because I guess there's the attitude that for people inside the camp, they're the only ones who know really what's going on. So you can sometimes hear criticism or even plaudits that maybe you're thinking, well, that's, you know, if only they knew what was really going on inside the camp. So I guess from an inter-county manager's perspective, watching things like the Sunday game can be an interesting enough experience.
It can be. I suppose the issue here is there's no issue really. The thing is that with the from a management and coaching perspective, of course, people outside the camp don't know what's going on, and that's fine. But we're not really appealing to them. Like, you know, I think the Sunday game appeals. Sorry, Sunday game is not really appealing to us. The Sunday game is appealing more to the masses, the people that are actually the fans that are watching the game, or those that are interested in the game. And I think when it comes to the lower ranked teams or the lower division teams, I'm talking about anybody beyond the top 13, I suppose, at this point in time. I'm not sure the Sunday game gives them a fair perspective on their season and where they're going. And I suppose why I say that is that most of the pundits, and I've been there once myself, is that most of the pundits on the Sunday game would have, to quote a friend of mine, dined at the top table. You know, they haven't spent time at the lower rank end of the leagues, whether it be Division 2, Division 3, or even Division 4. And therefore the perspective on that isn't as strong, you know. And unintentionally or not, I think they come across sometimes as patronising towards those lower ranked teams, you know. It's hard on them, it's a pity for them, and they shouldn't be there, and all this other stuff, you know. I'm not sure that's particularly helpful for the wider masses, or I don't think it's particularly enlightening for the pundits themselves to do it, you know. So from that end, the Sunday game for me isn't as helpful for me in relation to analysis and that, but I would like it to be a wee bit more inclusive, or have a broader perspective on the audience that it actually appeals to.
And there's always the phrases that come out as well that you hear, punching above their weight, and the phrase was probably used for Sligo heading into the Connacht final. I'm sure they'll just be glad to be there, and it can be a little bit condescending at times, because you look at the form, like since you lost the league opener against Laois, you'd won 9 games in a row, which included the Division 4 final and those championship games against London and New York. But like it almost feels like, sure, Jesus, Galway are just showing up. Now, of course, Galway win the game in the end, but sometimes the narrative, I feel like in advance, can be a little bit condescending towards counties like Sligo.
It can be. Now, I got a chance yesterday to watch a game, and Shane Adrian, you both know at this stage that the perspective of teams like Sligo and possibly Clare, but certainly Sligo, coming into this All-Ireland series, is that this is an opportunity for us to learn something about ourselves and learn something about the team as a whole, you know, and also to learn about ourselves as a management team, and to bring that maybe into next year's Division 3 in our case, and see, can we develop and improve. And I want to say this before, is that we won't get the chance to play 3 and 4 games against Division 1, Division 2 teams for many, many years, you know, but we'll have to get to Division 2 as a minimum to do that, and that's quite a bit away at this stage. So this is a huge opportunity for us, and one that we're not likely to get at anytime soon. So we're looking at this as really a learning experience and something that we can bring something from. Now, I watched the game back last night, and there's a huge amount of positives in this game for us, and there's a huge amount of good play that we had as well, you know. And I think there is value in looking at these games as to where, for example, the Sligo in this case did well, or where you know, we were able to curb some of the influence of Galway, like, you know. And while Galway, to be fair, played really well, and they're also a phenomenal team, you know, there were a number of the Galway players which were not as good as they might normally be, and that has to have been by not by chance, you know. I mean, there has to have been some influence in Sligo and that, you know, like Como was quiet and he's fabulous, like Shane Walsh was quiet, and Rob Finnerty was quiet, you know, from a forward unit, you know. Sean Kelly had less influence than he's had in recent games, you know. So, and maybe on another day they would be better against us, but just on this day they weren't, you know. And I think there's value in asking, why did that work out well, and was our Sligo players actually played really well, you know. You know, both teams created very little, or shot very little wide, both Sligo and Galway. And again, that's I'm not saying that's rare, but it's certainly good play or good practice, you know. Both teams created a reasonable amount of scoring opportunities, so it wasn't particularly a negative game or otherwise. So I think there's value in looking at these games and saying, where are the good aspects of these games? Where can teams like Sligo learn from? What can they bring forward, you know? And it's a much more positive conversation than maybe a patronising tone in relation to why they're doing in this championship and so on, you know.
Let's get into some of that then. Tony, what when you're watching back the goals, particularly, let's say, and I know you said that Comer obviously had a quite enough game. He did set up the 2 goals, and Tierney will play will tear plenty of teams asunder, I'm sure, over the course of the year as well. I just wondered, from your point of view, looking at the 2 goals, that even though they were different, there were some similarities in that sort of ball over the top, and one was obviously a slip in midfield. Both times that sort of unmarked runner comes into play in the shape of Tierney in that case. Are you looking at that saying, here's what we should have done differently on that, or what's your learning out of it?
So the second goal first. I know I don't see the second goal as a learning. Some of the reporters were asking me after the game, is the difference between Division 4 and Division 1 the amount of time you have in the ball? And I said, that may well be true in part, but that wasn't the case the weekend. And the case the weekend where we coughed up a lot of possession was simply by mistakes. I think it's on the game had it that Galway scored 2-7 from mistakes or ball that they got back. So going into this game, of course, we know that if we give up possession, that good teams are likely to punish you. So that's not really a learning. That's a fact that coming into the match. So the second goal in particular was a ball that came across the field, probably travelled a reasonable distance, but I think the Sligo player at the time was a wee bit casual coming into the ball, and the pass itself wasn't perfect. So a mix of those two things just meant that Comer got his hands in the ball, and then we were open at that stage for a counter-attack. And because that ball came from possession that we had won back, and our full back line had driven forward, our players had got forward to try and get into offensive positions at pace, and we were out of shape at that stage. And once we lost the ball, then we were wide open for it. But the follow-on aspects of that, then from a defensive end, Tierney came from behind, and he wasn't tracked as a late runner coming in, and he was able to get in behind and just do that. So there wasn't really a learning that was just simply mistakes. The first goal was similar in that the centre back for Galway, who is John Daly, he's an excellent passer of the ball, and we know he's an excellent passer of the ball. So when he's 45, 50 yards out, maybe 55 yards out in this case, he has a lovely left foot, and he floated a lovely ball in. Now, I think it went further than he intended because Comer came in front. And when Comer and Eddie McGuinness, the full-back, put on the brakes, Eddie slipped and fell, and Comer then got in behind, So again, is that a learning? I don't necessarily think so. It's a mistake. It's a slip, and then it's a pass across the face of the goal. Tierney at that stage was standing at the edge of the square, so he hadn't come late. His man had moved to the lane to try and stop maybe a goal shot from Comer. So I don't see those as learnings. To be honest, I see them as just simply mistakes that we had. Learnings for me were more around, some parts of our attack and play. Can we do better at it? Are we cluttering our own space in front of us? Also, some of the runs from Tierney, as an example, he came off the wing really well, time and time again, and he was very hard to stop. Now he's a powerful big man, let's be fair, and with good pace. But when he cuts off the wing and that, he's causing huge amounts of harm every time he does it, and that's maybe aspects of a game we need to look at and learn how we can deal with that better.
Yeah, you're talking about positives there, and even as you mentioned, keeping some of those Galway sharpshooters reasonably quiet. And even if you look at other positives, Tony, like the first 10 minutes of the game in particular, you're running through unchallenged, and that was certainly picked up at half time in the television coverage, that a lot of the Sligo runners through the half forward line and further in were certainly, Galway defenders were finding it hard to get a hand on them. And there was a couple of nice scores as well from, I think there was one score in particular, Dara Cummins, I think it was, with a very instinctive score at one point in the game as well. So there are certainly, I'm sure, things that you're going to take away from this and sit down and say, well, look, we did a lot of things right as well.
Oh, there are many aspects. You're talking about the runners. We actually have a lot of pace in the team, in the Sligo team, and it's pace in a positive direction. Pace going forwards, Evan Lyons, Mullins, Terry, Spillane. There's more in there just not coming to mind. But we've a lot of pace and there's a lot of good runners going forward, and I was delighted to see the weekend that there was many aspects of our play that we have that we've developed, I suppose, or the players have developed throughout the National League and have taken it into the Championship. I was delighted that we didn't sit back and become just a defensive team trying to curb Galway, because I don't think that works anyhow against that Galway team, So I am happy that we tried to put our best foot forward. And there's just parts of that game we just fell short on, and most of that is simply mistakes that we made, But isn't that okay? This isn't we spoke to players before. This isn't a case of failing, and because we're now up against 3 more teams, so we're likely to get 4 tough days out here. But this isn't really a case of failing that we spoke to players about. This is more a case of that's the first attempt at getting this right. We're now going to have a second attempt next Saturday now against Kildare, and then there'll be a third attempt against Roscommon and a fourth attempt against Dublin. And each of those occasions we learn a wee bit more and move on, And we're not looking at this as a terrible occasion or a terrible experience or anything like that at all, because it isn't. It isn't at all anything like that, And I think we're all in the same boat as this,
I'm half inspired listening to you here, and it also brings to mind the comments of Niall Murphy. Recently, Tony was talking about you bringing a bit of grit, belief, arrogance. He said, I don't know if you saw those quotes, or were you thinking, Jesus, you could have kept a few of those thoughts to yourself. He said that you're very good speaking to the group. Can you talk to us a little bit about how you people speak about that stuff all the time, but practically, how does that work?
To be fair, you can only work with the group that you have, okay? And in Sligo at the minute, we have a lot of positivity coming on at this stage. Now, I'm not just talking about the under-20s here, because the under-20s are a fabulous story within Sligo. We've had back-to-back Connacht championships with 2 different management teams, and with a big change from last year's team as well. I think there was maybe 10 or 11 of those fellas who moved on from the panel last year, so it's quite a change on that as well. So there's a huge bunch of positivity there coming with those on the 20s, and obviously before that, one of those groups was 17 years of age coming through, and we have the school situation as well with the 2 colleges doing really well. Then on the back of that, then we have a senior team now which is progressing reasonably well. To be fair, we've had a really good Division 4 this year, and I think within that Division 4 we've had. I don't mean this to come across arrogant at this stage, although I appreciate it might do, is that we were comfortable in Division 4. We won most of our games by 4 or 5 points, or certainly into the last couple of minutes, or last 10 minutes in all them games. We were, in some games, 8 and 10 points up, before teams maybe got last minute goals. So that comfort throughout Division 4 has allowed us to express ourselves a wee bit more and develop our game a wee bit more when we weren't under as much pressure as maybe we have been, And that has helped. That has formed, I suppose, over this past couple of years through an excellent S&C programme, which Sean Boyle oversees. And then Joe Keane, who heads up all the coaching and the training. And Joe, I suppose, develops the coaching plan that we all put, I suppose the football plan that we put together, and Joe develops that on the football field as a strategy, And then we took in quality people in Paul Dorkin, Noel Boyle, who's the last captain of Sligo to win the Connacht title, and Colin McFadden then this year as the forwards coach, So we have a really good team here. So while, there are aspects of this game where people say, Tony's involved in this, I really have an excellent team here around me, And it's not just an excellent team, guys. It's a team that have real experience here. Because McFadden, Dorkin, myself all have success at our learning senior level. While it's in the past, it's still very much relevant at the minute. Noel has the success in Connacht, and Joe, as a coach, he would have been involved in the background teams in Mayo before, and he has an All-Ireland medal himself playing with Cross Malina. So I think as a management team, we are a strong management team, and from that we bring that bit of confidence that Niall Murphy is talking about, because we do believe that we can offer something as a management group, but we also believe that we can actually communicate this at least reasonably well to the players, and that the players then can develop as a result of that. And I think to date there is some evidence of that, and I would hope that over the next 3 games that we will learn, as I said at the start, more about ourselves and more about the team, so that can be brought then hopefully into a Division 3 next year, where we want to emulate the likes of Loud making that progress, or Fermanagh making the great progress that Fermanagh has made, or Antrim making the good progress that Antrim has made, coming from 4 into 3 and so on. So, I think we can do that, and as a management team, we have every confidence that we can do it.
I think it's probably no surprise to anyone that Sligo's scoring average has gone up this year when you mention the likes of Colin McFadden coming in as forwards coach, working with Niall Murphy and Carabine and Spillane, as you say. So that's clearly a massive coup for yourselves, and as you say, it's a solid backroom team. The under-20s thing as well, Tony. Like, what a story! It's unbelievable. That 2-point win over Kerry last weekend at Pearse Stadium, such an exciting game as well. This final to look forward to against Kildare, it's going to be a cracker because both teams, I think, will fancy it. Do you liaise closely with Paul Henry, or how does that all work? Like, it's I'm sure exciting for you as the Sligo manager to see the depth and breadth of talent coming through.
So 2 years ago, the Sligo County Board, Sean Carroll in this case, came to me and said, listen, we want to look about protecting the under-20s and giving them their space. And So I agreed with this. I agreed with the County Board's direction. It wasn't my idea now, it was the County Board's idea. So I agreed with the County Board that under-20s should have their own protection and that we would not look at under-20s until such times as the under-20 championship had finished. So heretofore for the past 2 years, then we have not had any involvement of any description or any influence of any description in the under-20s and their progress towards Connacht Championship success in those 2 years. And nor have we had any participation from those under-21 players in anything whatsoever to do with the seniors over those 2 years. Now, while that's a loss for us, obviously, because we would love to see some of them under-20s, I think it is fair and proper that they get the chance to compete at their own level. And when it's over, then that we get the chance to look at them. So at the end of last year, once the under-20s was over last year, there were maybe 3 or 4 of the fellas come into the seniors just for a couple of weeks before the year was over. And then they all joined then this year once the season started. Now, I suspect that may be the same with the under-20s this year. But to be honest, I haven't gone to that space yet. So I don't know if we will look at the under-20s coming in or not. And I don't know if they'll be interested in coming in or not. My initial gut feeling is that, God willing, after the All-Ireland final and they win it, that they get their break and they go back to the clubs and they enjoy themselves without worrying about the stresses of integrated senior football. But it's a brilliant story. It's a brilliant time in Sligo. It's a brilliant occasion for us. We take a lot from the under-20s success because every bit of success in Sligo is important.
Jeez, I can imagine, chance for a first All-Ireland title, that level certainly upcoming. And as you mentioned, you have the 3 games in the round-robin stage now. As you said, the home game against Kildare first up, the weekend after next, away against Roscommon then on that weekend of June 3rd or 4th, and then against the Leinster champions, we'd imagine it'll be Dublin on the weekend of June 17th or 18th. So that, Tony, against, say it's Dublin, it's supposed to be a neutral venue game. What do you say, and this is a conversation that's come up in the last week or two, what do you say if someone turns around to you and says, oh, by the way, you're playing Dublin in the last game and the neutral venue is Croke Park?
Yeah, but I don't think that's going to wash, guys. I think the neutral venue in this case will have to be Cavan. Because if Kildare and Sligo can play an All-Ireland final, and it has to be in a little venue up there, and it's in Breffy Park, Cavan, I can't see why Dublin would be any different. Or we're talking about Dublin, obviously, potential winners, but Croke Park's clearly not a neutral venue.
Because Glenn Ryan, I suppose, had those comments after Kildare were beaten narrowly by the Dubs in the semi-final in Leinster, and you can kind of see where he's coming from, because it is a home venue for Dublin, no matter what way you swing it. It's in terms of even the dressing room, the home comforts, the familiarity. There's really no discussion there, I guess.
Yes, no, I agree entirely with Glenn Ryan, and in this case, all those big fields don't offer any challenge, any major challenge for that Dublin team. Like, they're a very confident team, they're a very mobile team. They're equally as good whether it be in Dublin or elsewhere. So I don't see them, the players themselves or the management for that matter, having any concern about travelling to any of the big fields at all, Breffny Park or Thurles or anywhere else. Actually, any game might be played. So I actually don't think that the Dublin players would have any issue with that whatsoever. In fact, I'm not even sure the Dublin management would. So in all honesty, I think it's Glenn Ryan's right to raise it, entirely right to raise it. I don't see any reason why he wouldn't raise it. But for us, anyway, when playing in Croke Park against Dubs offers nothing to us, and so we'll certainly be looking for it to be in a neutral venue if it is Dublin.
Very final one for me, Tony. How are you enjoying the coaching? Ultimately, so far? Because I know you quit county football at 29, you quit football generally, then across at 32. You got into the coaching. You were with Stephen Rochford's backroom team in Mayo, so you've got plenty of experience at club level as well before that. So is it something you enjoy? Because I know you're doing work. Am I right in saying in hospice, or certainly work that are long hours?
Yes, so I work actually in a medical device company, so I have my own company there, medical devices. So I spend a lot of hours in it. So it is difficult to balance the two things. At the minute, most of my role in Sligo has been and is now more on the management side than coaching side. Obviously, I do a small bit of that. So because, as I said, Joe Kane is the main coach in it, but the hours are sizable, and when you're involved with Sligo, it's like maybe 2 hours 15 from home. So it is quite a challenge making both ends meet. But I do enjoy it. I really love the people over there in Sligo. I was Mayo beforehand. Like, I love the people of the West. I have to say they've been always very good to me and very receptive of me. And the people I'm involved with, the county board and both Mayo before this and Sligo now, are also very good to me. And they're always very kind and willing to help. So for now, yes, I very much enjoy it. How long that'll last, I guess, it's hard to tell.
Who knows? I was listening to Martin O'Neill on the TV last night talking about the difference between being a manager and a coach. And are you happier being a manager or a coach?
I have more evolved now into the management role. So right now, I'd say I'm more happier being a manager than a coach. They're two massively different jobs, and the focus in both those roles is massively different, So, yes, for now, anyhow, certainly in this role in Sligo at the minute, the management role is much more content for me.
Brilliant stuff. Well, listen, Tony, really appreciate the time. No doubt we'll catch up again across the coming months as the championship progresses, and best of luck in that round robin phase. I'm sure we'll be chatting to you on the back end as well.
Thanks very much. Thanks, Shane. Thanks, Edwin.
Great stuff. Tony McEntee there, the Sligo senior football boss, at 8:51 AM on this Tuesday morning's OTB AM, brought to you with Gillette Labs. Get the ultimate shave or your money back. Neon Night Edition available now. Cameron Hill joined us in studio now this morning as well. Morning, Cameron. How are things?
Shane and Adrian, how you doing?
That's surprising, your voice there.
Yeah, the swap seats. It's weird.
It's weird. It feels like Friday, but it's not quite, because we're in different seats.
Been duped. I feel like I've been duped.
See what we've done there?
I've been instructed to read out the Micheál Martin quotes.
On you go.
Not instructed. Not
instructed.
Advised.
Yeah.
Advised. Is that too
Jinx.
strong? Yeah.
Yeah. Hinted.
There's a slight disagreement that I was saying earlier that Micheál Martin was whatever you want to word it, not for GA Go. So Colm was just making the point that maybe that's entirely fair to the man. I still think, reading his quotes, that he's not for GA Go. But I mean, I guess what Colm is saying is let the listener/viewer make up their own mind, which is maybe fair enough. So he said, I think so, when asked if he believed that all GA games should be available free to air. So unless in that context GA Go was to become entirely free to air, built off a commercial model, whatever it might be, then that wouldn't be compatible. He says, it's a personal view that I've had for a long time, is the game of hurling that has lost the most in my view, because hurling at its best is simply a classic. Yeah. Irrespective of anyone's preference for any particular code of sport, everyone loves to watch a great game of hurling. We've had 2 classics already now. This feels
like
a politician.
Did he ask ChatGPT for this?
Exactly. I'll let the viewer make up their own mind. We've had 2 classics already now in terms of the Clare Limerick game and the Cork Tip game, and it just seems that a significant audience didn't get access to that, didn't get to see hurling at its best. Talks about a sun-drenched, beautiful new stadium, Páirc Uí, and then talks about certainly our senior citizens need to be able to watch these games, and I think hurling will benefit because we want to continue the brand. Hurling is one of the great iconic identifiers of Ireland, one of the great games played at a very high quality, at a very high level of professionalism in terms of the execution of the hurling. We want more people to see it. I think it should be reviewed for the benefit of hurling itself. So
David Brent, or was that?
Yeah, I was going to also draw my conclusion to that, but I'm not going to.
No, he's right. He's right in terms of we all want to see hurling free to air as much as possible, especially when it's a game like the Cork Tip game. That's fair enough.
But I don't think those views are compatible with GA Go in its current guise being in existence.
Yeah, 100%. Glad we could clarify that though.
And we now know that Páirc Uí is sun-drenched, and that's
sun-drenched Páirc Uí.
Important.
Yeah. It was a sun-drenched Aviva Stadium for the AIL final between Turner College and Clontarf.
You know, it was drenched in, Shane, quality because it was an absolutely brilliant game.
I thought you were going to say Dynamite.
No, no, not here. No, not a pint to be had over there. Certainly not for me.
Right.
But it was, absolutely brilliant. Really, really great occasion. So Terranure Clontarf repeat of last year's AIL final. I got to be honest, I'm a Terranure boy. Living there, of course, but
runs through your blood.
Runs through my blood.
You're a bit of a Charlie High.
Bit of a Charlie High.
You're from Sligo.
Nope.
You're from Mayo.
I was wondering why you're going there.
From
you should try it sometime.
one part of Dublin, and now you're also from Terranure.
Yeah, there you go. I'm from all over the place.
That's a Charlie High.
And he's lived in France.
And I've lived in France. I'm a citizen of the world.
Yeah.
Basically. But they were brilliant. The Terranure fans were especially loud, but the Clontarf fans were great too, and there was a good back and forth between the two sets. Even when the game really started to run away from Clontarf, into the second half, Terranure just kicked on, and I mean literally kicked on. I know everyone's been talking about Caolan Dooley in the aftermath of this game, and I'll get onto him in a second, but Terranure brought on, great name, ultimate impact sub, even a name, Connell Boomer, and just changed the game. Right? Absolutely brilliant. Fantastic. And Clontarf, maybe through injury, I can't see it as a tactical switch. They lost Angus Lloyd, who's been really, really good for them at scrum half this year, and they just lost that little bit of zip, and Terranure just capitalised on that and continued. But it was a kicking masterclass from Caolan Dooley. I saw people online saying it was the best kicking performance they've seen at the Aviva Live.
Wow.
Genuinely, it was, I think it's the best I've ever seen live, full stop.
30 points and he
30 points and he missed one.
Did you ask ChatGPT?
I didn't.
The greatest?
No,
I don't think
I
didn't see ChatGPT in the stands, so maybe they're
maybe
they're more of a URC fan.
They're everywhere. They're like Jesus.
That's true. That's true.
Everywhere.
Maybe, I don't know. Maybe we'll ask. But certainly I felt it was one of the best. I mean, it was ridiculous at one point because the game was starting to run away from Clontarf. With around 15 minutes to go, it was clear Terranure were going to win this. But in the Terranure end of the stand, like in the Terranure end of the stadium, you could hear people going, "God, wherever the ball was at the breakdown, God, you'd love a penalty here." He couldn't get this one, could he? And there were ones from like halfway. It was real Franz Stein type stuff, where he was just banging them over from halfway, really in his stride.
He's a Limerick lad, isn't he?
Limerick lad, yeah. But he was like, there was nothing he could. Every chance he got, he just took.
What age is he?
I think he's around 24, 25, is he?
Yeah, he could be even 23 or 4. I'll look that up here.
But he was brilliant. There was nothing he couldn't do. He was to place kicking what Mac Hansen seems to be to facial hairstyles. Pulls everything off.
The rest of his game.
The rest of the game was really, really good. He had Cullum de Butler outside him, who was also brilliant, and brilliant in his post-match comments, saying that there are players here in the AIL playing week in, week out, who are putting in great performances and are putting the academy and pro players to shame when they come down to the level. Because you look at some of the AIL, and I've missed a bit of it admittedly this year because I've moved to Saturdays and all the fixtures are on a Saturday, but there's some quality. I was at the Lakelands game when Terranure played Clontarf in January, and that was brilliant as well. And you look at some of the names like Cullum de Butler, Harrison Brewer, who's played for Leinster, Jordan Coughlin, who's been around the provinces at this stage, Cathal March, Steve Crosby on Clontarf, who's former Connacht man, Alex Soroka, the Soroka brothers. Great story there. But you sort of, like, obviously, as Jerry Thornley mentioned last night, the British and Irish Cup going has helped the quality of the IAL because all these players are coming down and there's less A games. You look at some of the teams and sometimes it feels like it's a bit of an island of misfit toys where these players are coming down, they're brilliant, but we don't get to see them all that often for their provinces. But it just hammers home how important the club game is to Irish rugby in terms of developing them and keeping them at a really, really high standard, because it is a high standard. And as Thornley mentioned yesterday, there were lots of minis in the crowd and lots of young kids, and these are the kind of cult heroes that are going to cultivate a kind of interest in Irish rugby going forward at a local level. I sometimes think that's a bit forgotten with the emphasis on the schools game. The club game is where you can foster that community, and the critique I always hear from people who aren't into rugby, apart from, well, I just don't like rugby, is I can't relate to some of the guys in the Irish rugby team because they come from a very small section of schools rugby, or they're foreign imports, I should say, which is fine. But that ability to relate to the team is really important too, especially in a year where we could really put on a performance and potentially win the World Cup. You think this is the time now for everyone to get behind it, and it does feel like there's a little bit of disengagement, and I think it's because we're missing an opportunity with the club game in terms of fostering that local community and fan-based culture.
No, I think it's a fair point. And certainly judging from my social media channels at the weekend, like to see the atmosphere, because you think 8,600 people in the Aviva, that can't be that great an atmosphere, but it looked cracking.
Brilliant. Great colour.
Flares and everything.
Lots and lots of flares. You love to see it.
Brilliant stuff. Cameron, great to bring a bit of a highlight to that as well. Well done to Terenure College and everyone involved for a cracking win over Clontarf, as we said. 8:59 a.m. on this Tuesday morning's OTB AM now. Delighted to welcome to the show the football analyst Jasmine Baba. Morning, Jasmine. How are things?
All good here. How about yourselves?
All good. Thank you very much for joining us as per usual. We spoke a little bit about Jude Bellingham on the show last week between ourselves, and we decided we wanted to dive a little deep into the man himself. I guess first of all, what's the talk that you're hearing at the moment over in Germany? Because he's still involved. He scored a couple of goals for Dortmund over Wolfsburg at the weekend. 6-0 win. Still firmly in the Bundesliga title race. So that moved them to within a point of Bayern Munich at the top of the table. But are you hearing Real Madrid? Are you hearing Man City? It seems to be the Bernabeu that all the talk is for at the moment for Bellingham's future.
Yeah, and the last few weeks especially has been fully Real Madrid. It started off with Manchester City, the rumours, but that's sort of died down now. And the last few weeks just been solely Manchester City. All media outlets expect Jude Bellingham to leave this summer. I think that's a given. News this morning is that he's rejected another contract offer from Dortmund, an improved contract, and it would be a record for Dortmund offering such a thing. So I think it would have taken him to 2026 and something around a 14 million sum on top. So morning reports are that he's rejected that. All the reporting comes from mainly Marse's side, which kind of match up. I'm not sure if the information's the same on German outlets or if it's their own knowledge. But yes, the last few weeks has been fully Real Madrid.
All right, so that sounds like he's certainly edging towards a move, and Spain seems to be the likely destination. A lot of Irish football fans would have seen plenty of Jude Bellingham in terms of England international level at the World Cup and what have you. Might have seen too much of him at Birmingham City before he left. He was so young when he was leaving. But what type of midfielder would you describe Jude Bellingham as, Jasmine?
So many people have him down as a box-to-box midfielder, but I don't think that strictly covers what he's good at, or specifically good at, because he's good at many things, and doesn't strictly cover what he does. Box-to-box, it normally focuses on both parts of the game, both in possession and out possession. And while Jude Bellingham's a good all-rounder in both phases of the game, he is definitely more suited to the attacking attributes. So if anyone saw any highlights from the weekend, his 2 goals is specifically kind of highlighted what he's really, really good at doing, what he seems to excel at, and why everyone's excited about this 19-year-old, because as you said, he was very young at Birmingham City. He is still 19, and it's quite crazy how mature he can play. So the attributes is, even though he gets played as a more 6 role, like a pivot, which just stays in front of the back 4 in the formation 4-2-3-1 that Dortmund uses. So there's 2 pivots, and they push him slightly further up rather than the one that guards the defense, and that suits him a lot more. So it's more of a 8 role, so further attacking midfielder. And I don't think he can be a single defensive midfielder just because of the qualities I've just mentioned. He is better in attack, and so we kind of quote him more, especially in scouting. We give him a profile of a central creator, someone who roams in the more attacking spaces and he can help lay off balls for his teammates. And he's both, his attributes can also tend to help him in like the attacking phases of the game for both himself and his teammates. So he is good at receiving the ball in between the opponent's lines and in their formation. He can dribble, he can pass, and he knows how to progress the ball and create passing solutions for his teammates. And he's one of the best in the league in his position in doing this. And what's really, really great, and what's really something we don't see, especially in under 23 levels, is someone who's both good technically, efficiently, but also suits the more direct phases of play. So if he needs to lay off a quick pass, find that quick space, he can do that. He can use flair, or he can keep it simple. And the fact is, a lot like Musiala in the same league, even though they play different roles, they are so mature in finding these solutions and kind of knowing how the game is run. It's why they are so sought after and so have been given these accolades. They run around teams, and for Jude Bellingham, he's the second highest scorer in that Dortmund team. He has 7 goals and 4 assists. No one in that team has more than 8 goals at the moment. So that is why he is so sought after, to show that kind of maturity in the way that he plays and how good he is in those attacking spaces as an 8 or as a 10, so even further in attacking midfield. And that is why he is just really one of a kind at the moment. And yeah, that's why he's got such a huge price tag on him for a 19-year-old.
Yeah, definitely some traits in that position that Madrid, I'm sure, would go for as well. There's like a temptation here, Jasmine, to make the Sancho comparisons. Like, they're different players, clearly, a different age profile, but obviously he did leave the club with major expectations that hasn't worked out at United. What is your sense then of how prepared Jude Bellingham is to make what would be a significant step up to the likes of Madrid?
I think Real Madrid are a little bit more clever in terms of knowing how they play and how kind of persistent they can be and what they're good at, whereas Manchester United for Jadon Sancho has been in a little bit of a transition period. Only really Erik ten Hag has really laid down some groundwork for someone like Jadon Sancho to really improve. And I think someone like Real Madrid or Man City, because I can't rule Man City out, of course, they both have that groundwork, that foundation for someone like Bellingham to come in and for them to fit straight away or to improve straight away. And they know what kind of football that they're playing, especially both of them, basically, a lot more than Manchester United had been. So I think that is a definite advantage for Jude Bellingham and the way he can make that step up. There had been some reports as well that Jude Bellingham wouldn't want to go back to England, or at least not yet. So I wonder if there is something like that kind of unease and transition zones at some clubs that he wouldn't want to go in at the moment, and would rather a move to Spain where he can really develop, especially more of the technical skill that he doesn't lack. Because if I say the word lack, it sounds like he's not good at, but his more direct skills is better than his technical skills at the moment. And I think in Spain, he is ready to take on that role of learning technicality and using that to his advantage. So I think he, first of all, as a player, is in a better space to make that big jump, but also the clubs that are apparently interested in him have a better foundation for him to actually grow.
Yeah, I know there was a lot of, reading The Athletic during the week, there was a lot of chat that from the Manchester side that a lot of the links with Madrid had come up at a very timely fashion from the Spanish press, and that this is not something that's unique. So, but I mean, I think you at the very top said that he'd turned down another contract offer from Dortmund. So, and there are very few clubs in the world that could afford him. So that would seem to be likely one or the other of those. Can I just ask you one last one on Sancho, Jasmine? I don't know if you had any information about it, but I had seen that there had been links because it hasn't been working out for United, that potentially he could go back to Dortmund. Is there any? Have you heard anything about that?
I have not heard anything about that, but the Jude Bellingham news this morning was very, very fresh. So it could be a possibility that I've just not seen it, but I've not seen anything to see that at the moment. Doesn't mean it's not true, but not seen that.
Jasmine, I'm curious, how would, let's just hypothetically say Real Madrid is the club that he signed for, and that appears to be the favourite at the moment. How does Jude Bellingham fit into that Real Madrid midfield in particular? Because you look at the talented young players that Carlo Ancelotti has built. He's Vinicius, Rodrigo, Camavinga, Tchouaméni, Valverde. I'd imagine, like you say, he can play in the number 6. I don't think Bellingham is going to be seen at Madrid as a Casemiro long-term replacement necessarily, but how do you think he fits in there? Because the talk is that Modric is about to sign a new contract potentially as well. You have Toni Kroos as well there, so he has options, Ancelotti, but how do you see him fitting into that midfield?
I'm not quite sure, and that's only the kind of problem that I've seen, like where positionally he would fit. As you said, he's not that kind of 6 as a single pivot, single central defensive midfielder. He does not have the same kind of tackling rates, even though he's good at ground duels and interceptions. He's not that kind of player, and I think you would really waste his attacking talent if you tried to keep him back. So maybe more of a replacement of Modric, someone who comes in a little bit more. He will have to be patient if Kroos and Modric is still there and still the better players. But look at their older ages. Look at the ages that they're pushing. Still world-class players, obviously, but you do need to focus on that kind of 18 up to 26 roles. So he is a lot better at bringing a direct and vertical element to Real Madrid's game, and his qualities in accelerating attacks are amazing. And not only Real Madrid, I think Man City would also benefit from that. So and he's also really experienced while being very young, so there's absolutely so much years he can bring to someone like Real Madrid in that kind of attacking midfield role that he could probably become a legend there if he stays long enough. So someone maybe to come in for Modric, more of an 8-10 role, and someone who brings in fast and vertical attacks for Real Madrid.
Yeah, as you say, he certainly could become a legend there, because he's away from, look, there's pressure being a Galactico as well, but he's away from the pressure of the English media, as you say, and maybe that's playing on his mind as to why he doesn't want to go back to England just yet, or to Manchester City. Like, you can imagine Tchouaméni in that number 6 role, and a little bit of freedom that might give Bellingham ahead of him. Maybe Bellingham and Modric are both in the same team together. It's hard to know, but certainly he seems to be such a dynamic player, Jude Bellingham, and as you say, he's got the flair, but he can also play it simple. So he's one of those players that a manager like Carlo Ancelotti can turn to in a number of different roles and in a number of different games.
Yeah, and to be honest, that's how he has been used across around the last 2 seasons at Dortmund. Under Marco Rosa, he played all sorts of roles, and that actually caused some tension between Gareth Southgate and Jude Bellingham, because Gareth Southgate was saying we don't know what his position really is, even though I think that was a bit harsh, because as a young player, especially under 21, you just want those players to play and get game experience. But yeah, as a 10, as an 8, I think he favours more, and I think it suits his attributes more. He's also really good at things like, especially from the weekend, his first goal was quite bizarre, but it showed off his talent in his kind of mid to long range shooting, as well as his second goal, which shows him how clever he is at working the space and getting into the space and arriving into the box. So yeah, I think even though he's been played as a 6, he's been played as an 8 and a 10, he suits those latter, more attacking roles.
Yeah, brilliant footballer that we'll certainly keep a close eye on in the intervening and following years. Jasmine, brilliant stuff as always. Thanks a million for your insight.
Thank you.
Lovely stuff. Football analyst Jasmine Baba there joining us on this Tuesday morning's OTBAM. It's 13 minutes past 9. Plenty of comments still coming in, loads of them. You'd almost forget, because of the excitement of the Premier League last night, that there's the small matter of Real Madrid Man City tonight at the Bernabeu. Like, it just sneaks under the radar when there's football every single day.
Yeah, can't wait for it.
Class.
Yeah. Like, what's Pep going to do? You know, no matter what, it's such an awful position to be in, because like these games just come around. This is one of the most defining days of Pep Guardiola's career. Like,
100%.
It follows him around like a stink.
Yeah.
And if Ancelotti was to do an over on him,
because if you were to lose 2 or 3-0 tonight at the Bernabeu, I'm not saying City are going to lose 2 or 3-0, but if you were, all of a sudden, like the Champions League dream is essentially over once again.
Look, it's true, and I'm sure that it's an unlikely outcome, I would suggest, but like even at that, like City are the sort of team that, like no more than we were discussing earlier on, if they have a target, and you know, if you were back in a team even against a Madrid to score 3 or 4 goals, you probably would be putting City in, wouldn't you?
Yeah.
But yeah, fascinating. We'll see.
Well, they won the Copa del Rey, wasn't it, during the week, Real Madrid? So they're coming in off a bit of a high. Lovely scenes of Carlo Ancelotti singing with the Real Madrid fans on the pitch. They beat Osasuna 2-1 in that game. Yeah, they hadn't been going massively well before that. At the start of May, there a week ago, they lost 2-0 away to Real Sociedad, albeit Real had 10 men. Before that, beaten Almeria 4-2, but lost 4-2 to Girona on the 25th of April as well. So you almost feel like, are they just they're going for the Champions League at this point?
I think so. Yeah. I think with a team of that quality, look, I don't know, like maybe City go there and do a bit of a number on them, and like, you know, given the two teams that are involved, the two managers that are involved, any outcome is possible in both games.
Yeah, how do you, like, I'm just intrigued to see how City, well, the Haaland and Benzema conversation will happen on both sides, but Benzema in particular at the Bernabeu. Yeah. Like, fascinating to see how City cope with him. Yeah. That many teams have been able to cope with him in Europe this season. He's just terrifying.
As is the other lad, of course.
Yeah. Haaland's a decent footballer too, isn't he? He's alright, like. Keep your comments coming in. There's loads coming in, especially on the AIL game there. The hurlers, the GA Go conversation seems to be still going on as well. Tony McEntee's an impressive individual, I have to say as well. If anyone missed that conversation this morning, you'll get it back on the podcast, on the app and elsewhere. He's just, when he took that Sligo job, and I remember he was linked with the Monaghan job, I think, before Monaghan found their replacement. I was like, well, this could be great. Unfortunately, he went to Sligo.
The stock is high now. It was interesting that I'm more into being a manager now than a coach. I thought that was interesting. Normally you hear, like, Ronald Gar's on with us pretty regularly. Yeah, I think he's made it pretty clear he enjoys the coaching side more than the other side. I think most people at that level, the coaching thing, they have to do the manager bit because they have to tick the box, whatever. But the coaching thing is the one that sort of
frees up a bit of time for him, like.
And then, like, I think also he was sort of leaving the door open a little bit, because, like, who knows what happens with Sligo. He's obviously filled that role before with Mayo. In terms of the coaching bit, it's possible that he would end up going back into that, because it was certainly, from the outside looking in, a big thing that was spoken about in relation to Tony McEntee, his coaching ability. So probably a big reason why he got the gig in Sligo. And then it's like, you know, but I suppose when you're bringing in players around you, former players around you who can marshal the troops, you know, like those quotes about him bringing a bit of arrogance into the dressing room, like, that might be as important as anything.
That's a cross Midland thing, I think. It was fascinating to see the Division 4 final as well, and himself up against Oisin McConville's Wicklow, two former club teammates. Just great to see that both of them flying it in the managerial game. But we'll watch Tony McEntee's management career over the next year or two with keen interest. And of course, Sligo, as we said, have that game against Kildare upcoming at home the weekend after this. 17 minutes past 9 on the Tuesday morning on OTB AM. Here are some highlights coming up in the OTB podcast network for you today. We've got the latest Koi Gig episode. We have got the news round and Pat Nevin, of course, as well. A load of fascinating stuff from Pat Nevin on last night's show. You can follow OTB across social and subscribe to the OTB podcast network. After these very short ads, we're talking Celtic with Tom English.
You're listening
to OTB AM.
OTB Rugby.
The detail around angles of running, for me, is a big one for Leinster. That's how they create opportunities. Not missing a line, not missing the timing of a run. I'm not saying they get close to perfection every time, but they get close to real quality each time they find themselves in a moment to make a difference. I think that's their point of difference.
Subscribe to the rugby stream on the OTB Sports app now.
OTB AM with Gillette Labs. Get the ultimate shave or your money back. Neon Night Edition available now.
18 minutes past 8 on this Tuesday morning's OTB AM with Gillette Labs. Get the ultimate shave or your money back. Neon Night edition available now. Celtic clinched their second successive Scottish Premiership title under Ange Postecoglou at the weekend. Kyogo Furahashi's 30th goal of the season, helping them overcome 10-man Hearts at Tynecastle, an 11th title in 12 years. And with us to digest the weekend and how things are going for Celtic, clearly well under Ange Postecoglou, is Tom English of BBC Sport. Morning, Tom. How are things?
Good morning. Very well indeed.
Thanks for joining us. So it's perhaps no surprise that Celtic have clinched the Scottish Premiership title, given their total dominance so far this season. An impressive way to clinch it out, and probably makes sense that Kyogo Furuhashi was the man who got in the score sheet again. He's been brilliant.
He has, yeah. Postecoglou has made many very impressive signings. Kyogo is probably the pick of them. Goals machine, would have scored a lot more goals last season, but he missed a good chunk of the league season through injury. He's just a kind of blur of movement, really, and he scores all sorts of goals. He can score crackers from outside the box, and he can score the type of goal, that's scrappy old goal that he got against Hearts at the weekend. He's been terrific. For the current generation, the younger generation of Celtic fans, the kids and young teenagers, he is the guy that excites them, just like Henrik Larsson was for the previous generation, or Jimmy Johnston, this generation past. I'm not saying he's Jimmy Johnston, nobody is. But for kids, this is the guy that does it for them. He's such an exciting player.
It's a 53rd league crown overall for Celtic. They've still got the motivation to continue with the season. Of course, a 5th treble in 7 seasons is the carrot on the end of the stick when they play Inverness Caledonian Thistle. That's the Scottish Cup final on June 3rd, so they will have the motivation to continue. Ironic, Tom, Tynecastle was where Postecoglou's league tenure began, with a defeat, 2-1 defeat a couple of years ago. It's quite hard to fathom how far he has taken this side since then, because, of course, when he first took the job, it was a surprise to say the least, and an unknown entity.
Yeah, I mean, people look at it in the Scottish League and they go, it's a 2-horse race. You only have to beat Rangers. That's true. You've got all the financial advantages over 10 of the other 11 clubs in the league. That's true. But the context is everything here. Postecoglou took over a club that was in turmoil. They just lost the league by 25 points to Rangers. They'd sacked Neil Lennon. Peter Lawwell, the chief executive, who was there for 20 years, left. The supporter unrest was off the scale. Protesting, really, really bitter protests outside Celtic Park nearly every weekend. They had this months-long pursuit of Eddie Howe, who was their first choice. They thought they were going to get him, and then he said no. I couldn't explain how angry the supporters were. Banners outside the ground, sack the board. One of them infamously said, "Shoot the board." So he's come into this maelstrom, and the whole team needed to be rebuilt. They had a lot of loan players, a lot of players who weren't putting it in anymore, who wanted to leave. Odson Edward and these types of guys. He had a massive job on his hands, on the pitch and off the pitch. They replaced Lawwell with Dominic Mackay as chief executive. He lasted 2 months and he left. So it was chaotic. He comes in, he starts making all these signings, one after another, hits the bullseye. And before we know it, they're playing this really good brand of football. They're winning. They win the league. They win the League Cup last season. They're going to win, unless Inverness can cause the upset to beat all upsets, they're going to win a treble this season. And it all makes sense. And his backstory makes it even more special. Because this is a kid who came from Athens to Melbourne when he was 5 with his family because of the military junta in Greece. His father lost his business. They arrived in Melbourne with 2 suitcases. They didn't speak the language. They didn't have anywhere to stay. And from there, he's built, and what he had with him was a love of football. So his own story, the immigrant story, there's a great symmetry with the history of Celtic. So that's why, for reasons of trophies, but also his backstory, that's why everybody at Celtic worships the man.
It's his tactics as well as his style of play, but also his transfers, Tom, because everyone has spoken about his knowledge of the Japanese market and how Celtic have clearly benefited from that. But when he originally came in, I mean, when you look at it now, they've no director of football. He has complete control, not quite to the level maybe of Alex Ferguson at the peak at Manchester United, but not far off. Like he literally has the trust and faith of the board and everyone involved in the club. And maybe he's earned that respect because of his dealings in the transfer market.
Completely. Like he has, excuse me, he spent a lot of money, but the net spend is very, very small. Because the Celtic are a very well-run club. So they sold Odsonne Edouard for a lot of money. They sold Christopher Ayer for a lot of money. They sold one or two others for decent money. And for that money, plus another maybe 8 or 9, 10 million, they've built this brand new squad. 90% of his targets have come straight into the team. Not just the squad, not squad fillers. Serious players at the heart of what he's doing now. The team that clinched the championship on Sunday, 16 players got game time. 13 of them were signed by him, and it would have been 14 if Alistair Johnston, the Canadian right back, was fit. So that gives you an idea of how he's rebuilt. A lot of Japanese players have come in, and they've it's a bit of a cliche. They play the Celtic way. The Celtic way is kind of winning, right? First of all, but winning with a bit of class, with a bit of style. And Farashi can do that. Hatate can do that. Maeda. And then he brings in Jota. He brings in Abada, a very young player. They're all contributing. Matt O'Reilly. And he's getting them for relatively small money. So he's finding these gems that are going straight into the team. I mean, the Japanese lads, they hit the ground running immediately. There was no settling in period. And these are guys who've come in. They don't know this. They don't know the city. They don't know the country. They don't know the league. They don't know the club. They don't know the language. And yet, a bit like Postecoglou himself, they immediately have an impact. So it's very impressive. And you got to look at it in context as well. You know, like Brendan Rodgers, you look back to Brendan Rodgers and his invincible season of 2016, 2017, and everyone thought, myself included, we'll never see kind of a league points total or a goals total like that again. Postecoglou's team could surpass both this season if they keep winning for the last 4 games. Rodgers got 106 points and 106 goals. It's within Postecoglou's team to beat that, which is incredible, really.
Pat Nevin was on the show last night, Tom, and he was talking about there being 1 or 2 nibbles, was how he phrased it, at Ange in the market. And I can't help but feel, listening to everything you've said, you used the word worship from the fans earlier on, the stability of the club, the Fergie-like grip that he has in the club. These are attractive things to Premier League owners, and I'm sure there's plenty of them looking at them. And look, I also get there's a tension there between, it's not to raise the question of whether Celtic or Leicester or whoever you want to pick are a bigger club, but the nibbles will be there. He's an attractive prospect right now.
Yeah, these clubs aren't big. I mean, he's been linked, I think, with about 8 or 9 Premier League clubs. Now, linked as in, is this a lot of tabloid nonsense or is there actual genuine interest? Who knows? But they'll know who he is for sure. And you look at, Celtic fans, they are talking about this. Of course they are. They're almost resigned to the fact that he will leave probably soon. If they got another season out of him, they'd probably be happy enough with that. They'd want more, but they live in the real world. I think if he goes on, and Celtic will go straight into the Champions League group stage now, if he does something in that, will he be there the season after next? You probably think unlikely, but he has always made a point, because he achieved success in Australia. He achieved success in with the national team in Australia in the World Cup. Got into the World Cup. Moved on to Brisbane Roar. He won the league there. Yokohama Marinos. He won the league there. He's doing great things at Celtic. But Celtic were the one in this side of the world that took a chance on him. I don't know if he was in for jobs in England before and he got turned down or ignored, but he feels a huge sense of appreciation to Celtic. And he's never really engaged with the chat because everyone's asking him, what about all these supposed interest from England. He's never really engaged with that. He's a very shrewd, very smart, very respectful guy, actually. And it goes back to his background, that he really does appreciate this opportunity that he was given.
This seems like a ridiculous thing to ask, given, as you said, the fact that he can surpass that points total and goals total of the Brendan Rodgers Invincibles team. But if you were to put a hat on as a Ange detractor and come up with reasons why maybe clubs wouldn't look towards him, I've heard the argument mentioned that maybe his bringing young players through that brilliant Celtic academy maybe hasn't happened as much as some Celtic fans would like to see. His European record probably leaves a bit to be desired as well, you'd imagine. Over the last couple of years, that's been one issue that Celtic fans have been hoping to address. Are those things that are a concern at all in terms of Ange's managerial tenure?
Well, I mean, the young players, true. Very few young players have got a look in at Celtic. I understand why they have to win every week. They have to. And I still think that they can do that by bleeding in a couple of young people. He hasn't done it. He hasn't done it, maybe A, because maybe they're not there, or B, maybe he just didn't think they're up to it. I don't know. But it hasn't happened. Let's see next season if it does happen a little bit more. European, it was his first crack at it. He was in a tough group with Real Madrid. I thought, even though they didn't get many points, I think they played a lot of good football. They created a huge amount of chances, even against Real Madrid, home and away. They created. So I wouldn't hold that against him. People were saying, you need to be more pragmatic. You're going up against Real Madrid. You need to be more defensive, And he said, no, well, if we're more defensive, we learn nothing. We don't learn anything. So he kept true to his own beliefs, attacking football. And I think they probably did learn stuff. But the truth of that will be next season in the Champions League. I think there will be pressure on him to deliver points next season, for sure. If he does that, then I'm not sure he'll be at Celtic for much longer. I always got the sense with Brendan Rodgers that he was fluttering his eyelashes at clubs down south. I always got that impression with him. I have not got that impression with Ange Postecoglou at all. I'm not saying he won't go. I think if he keeps going the way he is, I think he will go. He will have no choice but to go, because he'll get a juicy offer in a bigger market. Maybe not a bigger club, because there's not that many in Britain bigger than Celtic. But these clubs, the Leicesters and all these clubs, they're in a bigger market. So I suspect he will probably go at some point if he continues his rate of progress. But I don't get a sense that he's in a rush.
And yeah, as you say, that style of play, that high octane style of football. When you look at teams like Porto and Bruges this year making the last 16 of the Champions League, there's no reason why Celtic can't be among those teams to progress and do that as well. Like when you look at the Scottish Premiership table, though, Tom, and I have it open in front of me, so a comfortable win for Celtic. Rangers a distant second, so 34 games played at the moment. But even if you look at the gap between Rangers and Aberdeen in third, like Rangers are 29 points clear of Aberdeen in third. They're 49 goals better off than Aberdeen. So is that complete disparity and lack of competition in the Scottish Premiership a problem, even from I guess from a commercial perspective and getting people interested and involved and eyeballs watching the Scottish Premiership? Is it seen as an issue?
No, well, look, I mean, of course it's an issue. There's only two teams every season can potentially win the league. That's been a problem for 30 years. The attendances at matches in Scotland are terrific. Per capita, it's one of the most watched leagues in European football in terms of people coming through the gate. So there's not a massive issue there. It's just a lack of competition, and Aberdeen, there's a lot of good clubs. Aberdeen, Hearts, Hibs, they're all doing a lot of good things, but the financial gulf is just impossible to breach that. And Aberdeen have rallied. They've had a good last few months, and they're a good side. But it's impossible. I mean, you can't. It's like expecting Nottingham Forest to be going toe to toe with Man City. It's just financially, it can't be done. There's an interesting thing about Rangers, and they've kind of been in turmoil for much of the season. They're currently on 89 points. 89 points would have won the league in two of of Brendan Rodgers' 3 seasons at Celtic. Now, I know for the 3rd season, he was only there for maybe 3/4 of it, and then he left to Leicester. But 89 points, that would have won 2 of those leagues. So Rangers have done okay by that standard. It's just that Celtic have been kind of unforgiving in terms of the way they go about winning matches. They've shown very, very little weakness domestically.
Yeah, ruthless. And look, we'll keep an eye on the remainder of the season. As we said, that Scottish Cup final upcoming, and Celtic face Rangers in the final Old Firm derby of the season at Ibrox at 12:30.
Nice place to be going after the title in the bag. It's like they could not. I don't know what they would like to hang on a couple of days and get it done up there, but I mean, it's.
Well, did they do the clap onto the pitch?
I'm sure.
Does that happen at Ibrox? Surely not, Tom.
If Rangers applaud Celtic onto the pitch, I'm going to look up and I'm going to see pigs flying. It won't be happening. They'll be doing something as Celtic are walking onto the pitch.
I can imagine.
Applause.
Yeah, I don't think pigs are going to fly at Ibrox this Saturday for sure. Tom, brilliant stuff as always. Thanks a million for hopping on.
Cheers, lads.
Thanks. Brilliant. Tom English there of BBC Sport, reflecting on Celtic's Scottish Premiership win and their utter dominance in Scottish club football as things stand. It's
if we'd had him for another 30 seconds. Murray Kinsella has just tweeted that Gregor Townsend has extended his contract with Scotland up until April 2026, so it's probably not a great surprise. They've made some strides under him.
Yeah. Going in the right direction.
Yeah, nice to get that done for him, I'm sure, before Ireland tanked him at the World Cup, Shane. So
again, touch wood. That's the hope.
We'll see.
Yeah, Jesus. And Townsend's done a fantastic job. We've a load of comments coming in on the rugby from earlier, as well as plenty of other topics. Aaron Kenny, this is actually an email, believe it or not. Someone has emailed sport@offtheball.com. Don Logue is right. I live in Monaghan. Fair play to you. And a lot of people I talk to, hurling involvement or not in Monaghan, love a good hurling game. It's in places like Monaghan that not having hurling on RTE or Virgin affects. Kids won't play if they can't see it. Kids won't see it if it's not on TV in places like Monaghan. That is growing the game.
I'm not 100% sure that Cork against Tip in the championship grows the game of hurling in Monaghan.
I don't think so. There's a lot of interest in hurling in those counties.
I'd be fairly convinced that it doesn't. I'd be fairly convinced that there are way more tangible grassroots structural conversations that would need to be in place for I think it's a far wider conversation.
You need to be seeing the match. I think that there's a fair point there. You need to be seeing the matches on TV. You might see Monaghan as a Gaelic football county, but if Cork and Tip are playing in a hurling match, a lot of people are watching it in Monaghan.
The inference is that you end up with a few hundred kids going, I need to get a hurl. Mom, come on, bring me down to the shop. I don't think that I don't believe that.
Well, it's hard to quantify it. I
don't believe that grows the game. I think what grows the game is having vibrant clubs who are promoting hurling in schools and promoting hurling amongst an underage cohort. I honestly, it's Cork against Tip in a one-off game.
It's chicken and egg stuff, isn't it? You can't have the schools encouraging young people to play hurling if young people can't watch hurling and get role models.
100%.
A young player in Monaghan or Westmeath watching TJ Reid on TV or watching Declan Hannon on TV.
I'm not saying that harms it in any way. I'm certainly not saying that. But what I am saying specifically is if you have somebody in a school who's passionate about hurling, if you have a games development officer in the local club in wherever that guy is from in Monaghan, who's promoting hurling, who's down there night and in the morning, who's showing the passion, who's putting on exciting drills and fostering a love of the game. That's the important thing. I think that far too often we talk about the growing the game thing. For me is I'm not having it.
Not having it.
The other thing about watching the games is more of a, I think that's fair enough.
Yeah. Ideally there'll be a mix of all of the above.
Sometimes people just want to sit down and watch a game. You don't have to be thinking about it 4 weeks later.
Yeah.
You just want to sit down and watch. I'd like to have seen that game.
A lot of people who like sport will sit down and watch anything regardless, tiddlywinks.
Yeah.
Michael says GAGO is a big improvement in the partnership with Sky, in my opinion. I thought the actual market for this service is the Irish diaspora, and it's been a great help for this. Well, I guess a lot of people abroad, Irish people abroad, are getting to watch more games than they were, and they're quite happy to pay the £12 for Gaelic games.
What is it? We're breaking it down. Was it €1.50 or €2 a game if you buy the
full package? 75 quid or something
like that,
for the season. Conor Joyce says people already pay €165 a year for RTE. Well, if you pay your TV licence fee, you certainly do.
Jesus, what's that? What are you saying?
Well, like most people do, like everyone does, of course. I'm not talking about myself here. I'm not talking about myself here. I'm saying people generally out in the ether.
There he was last Friday night enjoying the spoils, like drinking his €165 in the green room afterwards.
I mean people out in the ether. And you should pay your TV licence. Of course, pay your TV licence, folks. Yeah, certainly not trying to throw myself under the bus. The
wine and cheese was had. That's, you know.
Well, you know all about it, for sure.
And another one, if you went to your Specsavers, what was that?
So maybe you should go to Specsavers, because you said in the car the other day, you know all about that. I can't remember the full line from Charlie Nicholas. It wasn't a bad one. We got there, folks. 9:39 AM. Tuesday mornings, OTB AM with Gillette Labs. Get the ultimate shave or your money back. Pay your TV licence. Neon Night Edition available now. On tomorrow's show, Jeremy and myself are back. We'll have James Tracy talking rugby, Leinster specifically. Kieran Donaghy, Mayo Women's Gaelic football manager Michael Moyles, of course. They won the Connacht Championship at the weekend, just gone. Vinny Perth will join us for his usual slot. Plenty more besides as well. Right now, Malachy Clerkin joining Joe. This was highlights from last night's show. Have a terrific Tuesday.
Well, GAA Go is in the dock, and you're going to be judge and jury, okay?
Of course, we are the worst people to pronounce upon it, you know, seeing as, you know, well, A, I'm at these bloody games and not watching them on GAA Go, and B, anyway, all the media have got sent out a free pass for GAA Go as it stands, so there's nothing. Who are we to pronounce on high?
Interesting. I'll be reaching out for my free pass presently. I didn't realise this was the situation.
I'm sure. What an outrage that they haven't got on to Ireland's foremost sports broadcaster and sorted them out. That's a bit of a disgrace.
I'm going to go full Michael Jordan on them here now. I saw, let's jump off with Don Logue, I suppose, because he's crystallised the debate in some respects. There's a quote tweet of the exchange I saw which said, fair play to Don Logue on his last ever Sunday game appearance. But they went there. Now, to make the conversation, I suppose, a tad easier, in this instance, pay-per-view is less the issue. Now, I know for a lot of people it's still very much the issue, but in Dunlog's eyes, pay-per-view is less the issue. There is a sense, and I saw Michael Dignan say something similar in the Mail on Sunday yesterday, that €79 for 38 games, high-quality production, that's okay. We can live with that. So if we proceed on that assumption, in Dunlog's eyes, it is the choice of game that is the issue. Munster hurling, in effect, has been exploited here to get this venture off the ground, was his sentiment. For anyone who didn't catch the conversation, here's just a few snippets of Dunlog on the Sunday game last night.
Who is accountable for the promotion of hurling? Because whoever it is not doing a good job. The GAA took on trusteeship of it. It looks as if they're actually shrinking the game instead of growing it. And I would say you'd have to question, are RTE and the GAA exploiting hurling? How many Munster Championship games in the football compared to the hurling have they showed? It looks very like that they're using hurling to get this joint venture off of the ground, whereas it should be the other way around. There's loads, hundreds, thousands of brilliant volunteers out in the game who are trying to grow hurling. As I said at the outset, it needs oxygen. There's no better oxygen that you'll get in the game than the imagery coming out of the likes of Tip and Clare from a full Innis, that being beamed into every house in Ireland. The Clare and Limerick game, the power of that. My nephew, my father told me lately, can name all of the Liverpool squad. I don't think the young fella was ever in Liverpool. Why is that? The opportunity we've lost over the last number of weeks to market the game has been huge, not to mention last night. And all the kids, I mentioned them at the start, going down to the match with their hurleys and so on, was brilliant. But what about all the kids that we're trying to introduce into the game, trying to grow the game, trying to bring new demographics into it? We've lost a huge opportunity over the last number of weeks, and I would say that the GAA has failed hurling at this stage. I sat over there, and the head of sport and RTE was here, you were here, right? And I said that given what was coming, that was a number of months ago, given what was coming with the coverage of the games in this country and on this station, we should put a rugby ball up in the corner of the screen up there, right? And I'm very proud of the Irish rugby team, and they're a credit to the country, and we all hope they'll win the World Cup. But in terms of being a competitive space, the GAA have waved the white flag because we've now given over 2023 to rugby country.
Well, look, in fairness, we can't compare all the sports here, and that's not what this show is here to do. And in fairness to RTE, I'm not going to decide what we show and what we don't show, but I think showing more rugby has actually been a really positive thing for this country in general as well, and I don't think that that's what this is here for. But I understand your point.
We're here to talk about hurling, Jackie,
I do
and
understand.
it's a competitive space, and there's a duty on the GA, the leadership of the GA, to fight for hurling, and all of those facts would suggest that they're not up for that fight.
Okay. Discuss.
Yeah, like there's an awful lot in there. I instinctively agree, I guess, with a fair amount of it. I also think some of it is kind of nonsense. If he thinks that that GA Go have used hurling to sell their service, wait till Saturday week when Mayo, Kerry and Tyrone Galway in the opening matches of the All-Ireland series are on GA Go. Those games, I would suggest, are every bit as big as the hurling games that have been on GA Go so far. So I think there's a little bit of nonsense there. I also think there's a small amount of nonsense. Like, I find Donal Óg, I find him totally compelling as a pundit, and as with all very good pundits, you don't have to agree with him most of the time or any of the time at all. But like the promotion of hurling, I find a lot of hurling like people in the sort of, especially in the big hurling counties, they're like they promote hurling when it suits them, when it gets to championship time. But like we're after sitting through the worst hurling league. Okay, the worst hurling league since last year's hurling league, which was the worst since. But it's like hurling, and I've written about this a few times. Hurling is now down to, there are 9/10. If you count the league final, there are 10 weekends all year when the top hurling counties play each other in meaningful games, because they have completely disemboweled the league. The league in sort of 2013, 14, 15, 16 was a phenomenal competition where the teams absolutely lifted the heads of each other's, and that changed because the top hurling counties wanted it changed. They absolutely went, here, we don't want to be doing this in May or in February and March. The season's long enough. We'll just wait till the championship. Thank you. So the league is a pre-season competition now. Now it's not all those league games are on free-to-air television, but the top echelon of hurling has reduced the league to a pre-season competition, and it's on free-to-air television. So like I take the promotion thing with a little bit of a pinch of salt, but look, it is absolutely true that hurling has got screwed by the early rounds of games being not behind a paywall. I don't particularly buy the paywall thing, but the problem with GA Go isn't that you have to pay for it. The problem is that it's a dose to try and get on the television. It's a pain in the arse to try and watch it. Like, I know people talk about, the elderly and people from the generations that have built the GAA going down through the decades. Like, yes, it's to try and set up GAA Go and put it on the television, but it's a pain for people of our generation. Like, not everybody has a HDMI cable to, stick into your laptop to link up to the back of the screen. And the fact that you can't just sit down and flick on the TV and have the matches on, that to me, I think is the bigger problem. I know that in the last week, GAA Go have emailed their subscribers and said that the app is now downloadable on some smart TVs, but it's not on all of them. I spent 20 minutes last night. I got a new TV over the weekend, and it's a pretty good one. And I tried last night for 20 minutes to try and find the Google Play app to download GAA Go. So I could just, the way you hit the Netflix app or the way you hit the Apple TV app. And that you can't do that with GAA Go. You have to cast it, or you have to have a HDMI cable. And like, I know if I was talking to my mother and saying, yeah, you need a HDMI cable, she'd be going, what are you talking about? But even if I was talking to my sister and kind of going, yeah, no, you need this, or you need to cast it and you need to do all that, she'd be going, here, can I not just put it on the telly? And that to me, I think, is almost, had they sorted that out ahead of time, had they sort of looked around corners and foreseen that coming down the tracks, I think they were kind of lulled into a false sense of security by the fact that in the time of crisis, i.e. during COVID, club matches were streamed and loads of matches were streamed, and I think they just kind of thought that people were across the barrier, and I don't think they are, because I think it's just not easy to sit down and watch GAA Go. And if you want your product to be consumed by a vast audience, you should make it easy for them, and this isn't easy.
Going to be interesting to see if this debate calms down, because you rightly pointed to a couple of weeks' time. So the weekend of May 20th and 21st, for instance, Kerry Mayo, GAA Go, Galway Tyrone, GAA Go, and Donalogue will be pleased to know that Clare Cork and Limerick Tipperary in the hurling will be all over RT on the Sunday. And it is a similar situation the following week as well. It is a football bonanza on GAA Go, and hurling is the preserve of RTE. So, but I think by the time, John Fogarty wrote this afternoon or this morning in the Examiner, by the time the Munster round robin is done, all 10 hurling matches will have been an RTE or GAA Go, and there's an even split between the two. So I think like maybe that fact was missing from the conversation last night. But that is not to say that war is not going to break out in a couple of weeks' time when people realise those football games. The round robin series is more of a GAA Go production.
Big time, yeah. And look, as I say, again, I'm not sure that people are that annoyed by that. I think the level of, like, of God saying that all hurling should be on free-to-air television, which is hilarious given that, like, apart from anything, there's conversations about how RTE is going to be funded going into the future, and yet we're saying that everything has to be on free-to-air television. Therefore, you would presume that means RTE have to pay more for it. Anyway, that seemed like a ludicrous thing to me. I do think there was a really good point I saw someone make there last week, where by putting matches on GAA Go, by putting it on an app that there's a rigmarole that you have to go through to get it on your television, nobody flicks onto it, and that is a change in what we have had up to now. Like, it's hilarious that you hear people this week talking about, well, Jesus, I didn't agree with the Sky deal, but at least Sky was on the television. At least you could be flicking around the channels on a Saturday evening when, say, the Premier League is over, and you could come across, oh, Jesus, there's Tip and Cork. I forgot it was on. Whatever, and okay, you can say that, the people who have that attitude to the GAA aren't who we should be most worried about, or aren't who the GAA should be most taking into account. They're viewers. They're viewers of the games. A lot of people are just into sport. They're not steeped in the GAA, but they'll sit down and watch a damn good hurling match the same as the next person. What they won't do is, all right, I have to pay 12 quid to watch that. All right, okay, if I got the season ticket, I could do it for 79 quid, but hang on, there's no app for, right, so I need now to have a cable to put it into the back of, or I need to stream it, or and all, and on, and on, and on. I do think it's the inconvenience of it has made this a much bigger deal than the paywall aspect of it. Because like for the last few years, there's been hurling matches on Sky for for each of the last few years. The difference is, of course, that this year it turned out to be Munster hurling matches. And even that, I saw the GAA Go chief executive today was saying that this has come down to happenstance as much as anything, that the Limerick Clare game was supposed to be on a Sunday and RTE had the rights for it, and then it got moved to a Saturday because the Great Limerick Run was on a Sunday, and so GAA Go have the Saturday matches and blah, blah, blah,
Right.
blah, blah. So,
Not a concerted situation.
I think the big problem of, as ever, comes back to a kind of a hurling snobbery, and worse than that, a Munster hurling snobbery. Nobody was roaring and shouting when all the Leinster hurling matches in the last few years were on Saturday night on Sky. This has kind of come down to the fact that big Munster hurling matches are on Saturdays and they're on GAA Go, and it's a pain in the arse to try and get it.
On hurling, your point about the league is so well made and like so on the nose of what Don Logue is getting at. And I did, when I was listening to him, again, instinctively I found myself agreeing with him until I looked ahead and saw actually there's a whole bunch of football behind, I was about to say behind closed doors, on GAA Go, and then there'll be hurling to the fore. But just the place of hurling in the association is really interesting when you listen to someone like Don Logue, because on the one hand, I would say it is the most celebrated pursuit in the association. It is artistry. It is the drumbeat of our soul collectively. It is the greatest game in the world, versus the greatest game in the world is barely played in a whole bunch of counties to the elite standard. It's seemingly not growing, and almost most bizarrely, if Don Logue is speaking for hurling people, they have a real grievance. Like a real grievance as to how this sport is treated. Like GAA has failed us. I thought it's so interesting to position those 2 points of view.
Yeah, I'd be interested in that, Joe. Like, hurling is 100% more popular in non-hurling counties now than it was when we were growing up. There's no question about that. I remember growing up in Monaghan, and you could walk into a pub on All-Ireland hurling final day and Bolton and Everton would be on the TV. That you'd have to, and you'd be nearly seen as the weirdo going, could you put the hurling on there? And they'd be going, the hurling? Oh, is that on today? And that's like
do you mean that literally?
Oh, genuinely. 100%. That definitely would have been the case. Late 90s, early 2000s, 100%. It was just not a big deal.
Right.
And I talked to my, and all that. They would very happily sit down and watch a hurling match now. This is a very small thing, but I remember there was a 2007, Monaghan played Kerry in the All-Ireland quarter-final. Monaghan should have beaten Kerry. Tomás O'Shea fisted a last-minute point, and for years afterwards was saying, without even being a dick about it, I was sure that was for a draw. I didn't even know we won, which really stuck the dagger into all Monaghan people. But I was there, but it was the first match in a double header in Croke Park, and the second match was the All-Ireland hurling semi-final between Limerick and Waterford. And I remember sitting in the top deck of the Cusack stand that day, and a few Monaghan people had kind of stayed on for a while to kind of watch a bit of hurling, but more or less to let some of the traffic go and go down the road after it. And I got 100% there was Monaghan people around me. It was the first hurling match they had ever been to. It was the first hurling match they had ever seen. They were going, who plays for these crowd now? Oh, is your man Shanahan? Is that Waterford? As in Dan Shanahan. Because he had scored a load of goals in games that year. But it's completely different now. People would know, that Limerick are this phenomenal team, and they would know that to watch Tipperary play Cork would be part of, Irish sporting history and all that sort of stuff. They'd know who TJ Reid is, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So, but at the same time, nobody plays it. As kids, in football counties, it's just not a big activity. But I sometimes kind of rail against a little bit the likes of Donal Logan, the likes of Jackie Tyrrell, and the likes of these guys who are they that interested in hurling growing or are they more interested in, and this is not to pick the pair of them out specifically, but are hurling people more interested in hurling getting its due rather than it growing? Like, do people in Cork really care if people in Kerry play hurling, or are they happy enough that, you know, they play the football? Like, I don't know. I think hurling people love their sport, and God bless them for it, and they should. You know, it is a kind of a miracle of a sport. But I've never really got that sense that they want it to grow in Kildare, or that they want it to grow in Dublin, particularly. Like that who cares? Like they're happy with their Munster Championship. They're happy with their, you know, what they have. And I know that they feel that it should get a bigger show on TV or whatever, but it's like people love watching it. But I don't know, you're not going to change football counties into hurling counties. Or at least I don't see how that is going to work.
Yeah. And a final one before we chat about the football over the weekend. I don't know to what extent the GAA as an association are desperate for it to happen. You would think on paper they should be.
OTB AM with Gillette Labs. Get the ultimate shave or your money back. Neon Night Edition available now.